I messed it up. Psych.
Welcome to the show.
I pranked Hyperwizard. I played the outro song for the intro, but I
Oh
forgot.
shit!
I forgot to do it at first. I was like, "Oh crap, we're naked. We're naked on TV.
What are we doing?" How's it going, Noel? How's it going, chat? How's it going, everyone? Yeah.
Phil and Rini will be here shortly. We're just shooting the shit for a second, and then we're going to get into the show, which is sales and dating advice applied to storytelling, which is you'd be surprised how much overlap there is.
I'm looking forward to this one. It's funny. I am the least prepared for this one, and Noel is the most prepared for this one. So we've kind of switched roles this time, which is pretty crazy. But yeah, I got like a list of keywords related to both topics, and I think Noel has like slideshows and spreadsheets and like inside leg measurements. Diagrams of the human body all set up.
Nice.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, is that what I got? I don't know. I'm gonna go try and let the cat out one more time because it might be funny. I'll be right back.
Okay. Shit. Oh, I get to say hi to the chat. We never do that on Noel's channel because he always forgets. Hi, Hardin. Oh yeah, some people were here a lot earlier, and they're probably coming over from Bancroft now. So if you just came over from Bancroft, welcome. Julie Pascal, Haldor, Nefarious, if you're still here, Paulus Arts, Alex VRB in the Hize. I can't pull anyone up because I don't have control of this channel. The Voyager 47, great to see you. Ellie Munez, welcome. Bodied, never seen you before, but welcome.
What if I never came back?
That would be, I mean, I would make it work. we'd make it work.
You wouldn't miss me? You'd miss me.
I'd miss you. I'd miss all of your preparation. I'd be like, okay, dating, what do we do? I guess you gotta, if you're gonna write a story, you gotta hit the clubs.
Yeah. Dating on advice online is a hot button issue of sorts too, because it can be kind of cringy. It can be good depending on what context you put it in. It can be like ridiculous. So I don't know. But we'll look at that. We'll look at the dentist system.
Yeah. So like I think that was the core of doing dating advice as applied to storytelling, is like you learning about the whole dentist system from Always Sunny in Philadelphia, which we don't have the clip of, because if that was uploaded, that would be hilarious. But and then it's like, how could you apply that to storytelling? Also, I want to say, I think Bancroft's just rated us too. So I'm saying hi, Remus. Great to see you. Hi, RJ. And Moromi's here too. And down goes Solo. Cool. There it is. The dentist system.
What's up, everyone? Dentist system. There's a lot of slides. There's like 16 or something, and some of them we'll come back to and we can talk about like longer. But I'm going to go over them all kind of quickly in the beginning.
Well, you know what? What? Sorry, interrupted you.
Well, just this one, we can talk a little bit about it now. We can just read it or whatever.
Well, actually, seeing as the other two aren't here yet, we could totally just wait for them. I have a personal story that I want to share with you that, like, my day has kind of been kind of crazy. Do you want to hear it?
Yeah, do it.
Okay, so because this show starts at like 2 or 3 in the morning for me, right? Like, if I stay up, I'm not going to be any good. So I have to go to sleep in the day, right? Today, the first time ever, I managed to lucid dream. I could hardly sleep, and I'd spoken to Bancroft about lucid dreaming because apparently, like, he's done shit tons of lucid dreaming and does it naturally. And for the first time, I fully committed to lying in bed. I couldn't get to sleep. My brain couldn't go to sleep because I was so awake. But I committed to lying in bed and not moving like a muscle until I went into sleep paralysis and started lucid dreaming. And I've never managed to do it before. And like last night when I went to sleep, I fucking managed to do it. And I'm telling you, it's the best. It's fucking awesome. Bancroft was not...
Did you fly? Is it where you know you're dreaming? Is that
Yeah.
what you're-
It's where you fully know you're dreaming, and you can do whatever you want. You can do whatever the fuck you want, like at all. I was talking to Bancroft once about it.
Rini, what's up?
Hello, what's up?
Hype's telling us about his lucid dream.
Really,
Oh.
when I was preparing for this show, you know how I have to go to sleep, so I wake up at like 2 a.m.
Uh-huh.
For the first time yesterday, I lucid dreamed.
Really?
It was the
That's
fucking
never happened to me.
well.
So
I've
what
never
did you
been
dream
able to do
about?
it. Well,
Wait,
Bancroft
have
was
you
telling
been
me
working on it? Have you been working on being able to do it? Because I know you can train yourself.
in the past I've tried, but I never committed to it. But like
Huh.
Bancroft lucid dreams, like that's why he did the lucent, right? Like
Uh-huh.
it kind of came from his experiences lucid dreaming. So he was giving me some advice. So like because he gave me like some first-hand advice, I was like, you know what, I'm gonna commit to this. So I couldn't get to sleep. I was lying in bed, not moving a muscle. So basically, you just stay perfectly still until your body goes into sleep paralysis. And like you fucking enter it like you're entering the Matrix. And then you have to like, yeah. Like you, if you stay perfectly still long enough, you become paralyzed. And then you'll eventually kind of like realize you're paralyzed. And then, right, you have to break yourself out into the dream world. Like you'll be awake but paralyzed, and you'll be kind of dreaming but not. And then you have to. The only thing that you can move is your tongue and your mouth, and you have to like almost break into the dream world by moving your mouth around, and then you can eventually move more shit around, and then like you can do whatever you want. He told me about.
fuck?
Yeah, he told me about the first thing he did was like put his finger through his hand, and I remembered that. So like the first thing I did was like, okay, am I in dreamland now? Puts the finger through hand, and I'm like, yeah, bitches. And then straight away I'm like, right, I'm fucking flying. I'm gonna fly now. And then started flying, and then flew over the ocean above some people in a boat. And I was like, wait a minute, I can get naked now. And then started taking my clothes off and dropping them on the people in the boat. And then someone in the street shouted, so I woke up.
You know what that reminds me of?
Oh, boo.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it ended before just the good part. I watched a YouTube about Blood Meridian, and it's like got a character called the Judge, who's like a super famous bad guy, and he rapes and murders the main cowboy right at the end of the movie and dances naked, and then the book ends, and he like
Wow.
dances in this bar. I'm like, that's
Mermaid.
Jake.
That's me, raping
That's
people and dancing naked in the bar.
He's
Yeah,
just lucid
exactly.
dreaming.
Like what you described.
Well,
Damn.
apparently, if you do anything like try and have sex with people, like it gets your blood up a bit and you wake up. Like if you get horny, I think in a lucid dream you wake up. But
Really? But
maybe
then,
if you get,
why
go
don't
on.
you wake up if it's like a normal dream though?
It's probably a different. Oh, I don't have those dreams that often. How often do you guys have like horny dreams?
Not
You
often.
have to retain your seed for men, I think.
What?
You'll
Oh, if you do no fap for a month, you'll eventually like start having sex dreams. I need to try that then.
I'm on a
Well-
streak myself right now, and yeah, I've been having some.
Good job.
Rini, you were just on. Who was your piece? You were just on Bancroft's, and they were doing the wheel. Was your
I
piece
just
the last?
missed it. I just missed it. Mine was like the third to last.
Oh,
It was so. It was like I missed it by like a minute.
no!
I was like, fuck.
That was the big
But-
drama. I wanted to
It
know
was
who
funny.
won yours.
Some guy.
Hype changed the subject because we were going to hear if Rainey has ever had a sexy dream or how she has them.
Everyone's had sexy dreams. But
Is there
I
like a
don't
trick
have
for
them
girls?
often.
Like when does it happen?
No, I don't know. I think for women it's more psychological. So for me, it's never like a situation. I don't even remember. It's like
Try and remember.
it's just, huh?
Try
I
and
really
remember.
can't. I really can't. It's more like
The-
it's like
the
how men have
electricity-
to.
The electricity
Like-
before the first kiss, something like that. Or
Something like that, or you just remember being aroused in a dream, but you don't really remember why. It's like how men have to, or a lot of men, I don't know if it's all, but I've heard like, you have to see a naked woman or watch porn to be aroused. And I think men are just more visually based. A lot of them are. Jake shaking his head. But a lot of I think most women, they don't really need that. They can just, it's more psychological and just thinking of, I don't know, the romance.
Yeah.
Renee's sex dreams is like a guy building a house for her or something.
Yeah. You wake up and have to change your sheets.
Yeah.
He's so capable.
It's all the time. Oh, wow, he's so responsible. I've never dated anyone like that.
You know what I was thinking could be a turn on for women? It was making me laugh. It's the keyword discretion. I was like, oh, discretion. I bet girls like that.
Discretion? Or
yeah.
Being discreet?
Yeah.
Oh.
Being able to keep her secrets?
I thought that discretion or discretion?
His novel always read the word discretion as discretion.
Well, that's just how you pronounce it. I don't know. I'm from Washington State. Is that not
you
how you
pronounce
yeah,
discretion?
It's probably a regional thing. I'll give him that.
Well, it's like the word. What is the word I like doing? Oh God. Oh,
hey, it's fine because
antithesis.
Antithesis?
Antithesis. I like saying antithesis.
What I miss?
Phil was
everything.
Phil was having his sex dream just a few seconds ago.
We were talking about all the good stuff. Phil, what was your last wet dream? We must all know now.
And how often do you have them?
I mean, I don't even remember. Like,
Phil's...
I mean, like, you thinking sexual dream or an actual wet dream?
I don't know if I've ever had an actual wet dream.
No?
Maybe like 2. But like, I don't know if they're that common, right? Like going the whole hog.
I don't know. In my mind,
Oh,
that's all men think about. That's my impression from being on the internet.
Maybe Phil doesn't have sex dreams because he's like the only one out of all of us that fucks.
That has sex.
It actually has in a relationship.
That makes sense. Yeah, I'll go with that.
Yeah, you should have taken that opportunity and just burned all of us.
Yeah. Sorry, guys. I'm not an incel. I don't have sex dreams.
Sorry, I'm not like you single ass losers.
I was gonna run to Chipotle, but my brother is making chicken for me on the grill right now. So
6 Ways to Someday says Phil gets wet dreams about Bisley.
Yeah, talked to Bisley last week. So what's this dentist thing?
Yeah, we'll get to it. Actually,
okay,
I want to
cool.
load my coffee, so I'll be back in 20 seconds.
All right, awesome.
I like the casual novel show.
I'll tell you a story. Yeah, I didn't know how casual this was going to be. Hail the chat. Everybody's looking good tonight.
Including me, who's not on camera.
Including
Irene. Get on camera, Irene. You've got sake.
Oh my God. Fine.
How we get our viewers.
You know what's funny? On my end, when I'm trying to watch the stream hasn't even started and it still says waiting for some reason.
Refresh.
I have, and it's still doing it, even though the chat's going. It's crazy.
I'm watching on YouTube and I can see it live. Hold on, I just got an iced coffee before the show, so I'm gonna go get a straw. I'll be right back.
This is the most casual episode. This is the best. This is the best.
When she comes back, then Jake, you gotta leave.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to get my food. So I had matcha today, sans boba. I told her hold the boba.
Matcha sans boba makes me laugh.
Sounds like a Star Wars alien.
Matcha sans boba.
Walks up to like the bar in Star Wars.
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, so that happened today. I did bench press today, which was good.
Oh, I need to go to the gym.
You do need to go to the gym. I successfully uploaded a short today.
What
Nice.
did you do it on? What did you do it on? I want to see it. You were only asking me like a couple of hours ago how to even do the fucking words.
Well,
And
I asked Bancroft too, and he got to me much quicker than you.
Oh, well, yeah, he taught me. I did them all by hand, and then Bancroft is like, "Oh my god, my you poor thing," and then said, "Oh, he can do it automatically," and I'm like,
"We got Julie Pascal in the chat. What's up, Julie? Good to see you. Is matcha that stuff that tastes like dirt? Is that or it's something else? No. That's the stuff.
You got it right.
Yeah,
we got 90 people watching right now. Thanks for being here, everyone. We're about to get started with this slideshow as soon as Rini gets back.
Are you excited for a hot new slideshow? It's the new thing.
Yes, I'm so excited.
What do you guys think about this first slide?
Wubba flubba dubba dubba bubba bubba. Let's try and figure out what his key talking point is related to this slideshow. What's he gonna say?
I think the key point in this is flubba.
The first flubba or the second flubba?
What's the second one?
I love that film as a kid, but I can't believe that like a whole flubba went through guys an entire digestive system, and then like blasted out his ass. Yeah, like he literally got like anal raped by flubber.
Reverse
anal raped by flubber.
Like a poop, basically.
Yeah. Wait, are we being reverse anal raped by poop all the time?
Yeah, we just reverse anal rape ourselves every day.
We're used to it.
Fall LOL life says I expect to cringe super hard. It's already happened. If you got here right away, there was a lot of it. But
Phil, I was talking about lucid dreaming. Phil.
We're talking about reverse anal rape from pooping.
I heard. Very educational, everybody.
Wait, Irene, before we get started, I have a little anything to do with the stream anecdote.
Yeah.
That some of the people might remember.
Hold on, be right back.
Oh my god.
She's listening.
Wait!
Nobody is here. Yes, Phil, continue.
Well,
ignore Jake.
I want Jake to be here now. Wait, did you guys
That's him. He just turned into that weird stuffed animal.
Maybe Jake does know. Did you see the picture I posted in our little thing last weekend?
Oh yeah. What you being followed that one?
Yeah. So that was actually Jim Steranko was in my town 5 minutes from my house at a Denny's that I was going to, and he sat right behind me.
What the shit?
You had just seen him like a few days before, right?
Yeah, I had seen him the previous weekend in Michigan and then talked to him. He didn't say anything about coming to Chicago, but he was there for a pulp convention. And I'm 5 minutes from my house at the local Denny's. I went there with Admiral Whack-Gas, my brother, and his girlfriend after a convention. And then Jim walked in with his buddy to eat, because he only eats once a day, usually at nighttime. And that was the only place that was open, like at midnight. And then after we were done eating, I went and said hi to him. And he was like, "What are you doing here?" I'm like, "I live here. What are you doing here, Jim?" And he's like, "Oh, there's a pulp convention." Yeah, it was crazy.
So is you getting stalked by Jim Steranko?
Yeah.
Like you both accuse each other of stalking the other person. He's like, "You stalking me?" You're like, "No, you're stalking me, buddy."
I think he was like, I thought he was like gonna assassinate me. You know?
Because he likes you so much.
That would have been cool.
Yeah.
He probably was like some CIA assassin at some point in his life.
Yeah, I hope he's not like this Phil kid keeps following me around.
I know.
He's like, "It was cool seeing you the other day, but this is too much. Back off."
Yeah. So that was my little anecdote. The fates are upon us.
The fates?
Yeah, I think it's fate. Keep running into each other. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Maybe they say it comes in threes, Steranko. So
if you've made him come twice, get ready for a third.
Just look in the mirror.
Good job, Jake. Good job making it really weird.
He's coming.
Look in the mirror.
Reenie's still wizard tier. I've upgraded to queen.
Oh yeah.
Okay. I'm too lazy to go buy another hat, so I'm just gonna keep wearing this. Oh wait, I have my cowboy hat. I'm gonna get my cowboy hat.
Cowboy.
Okay, fine. If she's gonna get a cowboy hat, I'm gonna upgrade to Wizard Queen.
Oh my god.
I'm trying. Down goes Solo. I'm trying. Maybe one day. I'm going to the Renaissance Fair this year, and I'm dressing like a badass gunslinger.
What's Jim Steranko gonna dress as?
He'll be there. He'll be like.
He'll be there.
Well,
He'll be right behind you.
well, we have a chainmail coif on. You know.
That reminds me, I forget what it's called, but I saw a Japanese movie about a guy who lives in someone's house, but he always stands right in their blind spot. So they never know where he is.
That's fucking terrifying.
Do people have blind spots? Isn't that just cars? Is there a spot in your house that you never see that's always black?
Well, it's just right
behind him.
Yeah, it's right behind your peripheral, right?
Yeah, it did stretch my suspension of disbelief. I was like, wait a minute.
Yeah, that's not possible. They always just stay right in out of someone's sight.
Yeah, that movie, I wish I could remember what it's called, but it had a really awesome detail where it starts because he'd find out whose home he could break into because he would post a flyer on their front door, and he comes back the next day, and if the flyer's still there, it means no one has been in because anyone would tear the flyer down if they lived there. So he finds a house that didn't get the flyer torn down. So he breaks in, and then he lives there for a while. And then the person comes home and he starts standing behind them.
Well, that wouldn't work for my house because I just don't leave the house for days on end. So
Yeah.
You're breaking into my house. It would be a very bad result for you.
Reenie's had like a big
something on my
plague
door?"
X. Reenie's had a huge plague X painted on her door for like 3 years and she's not noticed.
Oh, yeah, I better go check. You have a point.
I don't think so, Dango Soul. I think it's not.
Goat blood.
It's like if you want to tell if someone's been, if you want to see if someone goes through your door, you can put a bit of paper in the door, and then if they go through it, the paper would fall.
Actually, what you do is you put a bucket of nails right above the door.
Yeah. I actually did that because I'm a really paranoid person. I mean, I'm not paranoid enough about certain things, but I am really paranoid about other shit. Anyways, so when I first moved into my house, I was like, it was a new house, new neighborhood. I didn't know it was safe. So when I had to leave, I didn't have an alarm system yet. So I would put slips of paper on all the windows and doors. I was like,
what the fuck?
I would know before coming home. I check all the papers.
Oh my god. Reenie's like doing Home Alone 24/7.
Yeah, DIY security.
Listen, I didn't get it far. I've been on my own since I was 17. There's a reason I made it this far.
The small strips of paper saved your life.
Yeah, I mean, not really. It was a really safe neighborhood, but I didn't. You move somewhere new and you never know. Especially with Atlanta. Atlanta's weird. You'll have one street that's ghetto as fuck, and the next street is like rich people.
Yeah, they like it.
Anyway,
gay Atlanta.
Well, so we can get started here. The plan is I'll go over the slideshow kind of fast. We can pause if things spin off, but then we can go back to stuff because some of them might need more. And we'll see how much time it even takes up for the meeting, but there's potentially a lot of possible discussion. But to start it with this frame, this is like the thesis that it all kind of overlaps with. This is like sales, dating advice, storytelling, business, whatever. What you're trying to do is you're trying to create more light bulbs for the other person. And if you're creating less light bulbs, you're not doing as good of a job. If you're creating more light bulbs, you're doing a better job. So here's the guy telling his little story. This guy is responding, the thoughts are getting created, these new fresh thoughts or whatever. Because it's not a one-to-one. It's not it's a little different, And here's if it wasn't working, the no light bulbs are going off. You're saying something, it's almost falling on deaf ears at that point. I've called this in the past, I call this interactivity. So, but the another way you can call it is Francois Truffaut calls it the rules of audience participation. And there's some basic ways that if you're a storyteller, you can create light bulbs. And we'll go over this kind of quickly. And then sales and dating advice have some ways where it can kind of do it too. And that's what I'm kind of curious about, if there's any interesting overlaps or whatever. But the rules of audience participation, I read about that in a book where Francois Truffaut and interviewed Alfred Hitchcock. And that book, I found out about it from reading this book that was called like Manga in Theory and Practice or something like that. I think it's called that. It's from the guy who did JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. And he's like, the best storytelling book I ever read was just an interview between Truffaut and Hitchcock. And sure enough, they're talking about such good stuff the whole time. But Truffaut brings up the rules of audience participation, and they talk about it like they already know what it is. So I kind of had to reverse engineer to even put together what I think it is. But I think it is like kind of simple. It's like suspense, mystery, dramatic irony, paranoia, maybe some psychology and rapport type building kind of stuff, although that's like a little different. And then verbs for the audience. Anytime the audience is called on to perform an action as an audience member, that is interactivity. That's like light bulbs. And that would be if they're judging relativity, if they're anticipating, cross-referencing, if they're re-examining in new context, if they're rooting for or against. And there's probably a lot more examples, but just the idea that you can have the audience be like a pretty active participant in the story based on how you relay the information. And then maybe we'll skip that. So then with that said, we can look at the dentist system, or we'll go over this real quick, but this I want to come back to, because this is sort of like the foil for all that, where, so if you're anticipating the audience, if the creator is anticipating the audience and then the audience feels like you're anticipating them, they really don't like that. And that's like almost being like kind of needy. And so it's weird. You have to like anticipate them without them knowing that you're anticipating them. Or some people just quit anticipating the audience altogether, which kind of is that's like the counter argument to some of what I'm putting forward. I've heard Takashi Miike say, that was a famous Japanese director. They asked him, do you ever anticipate what the audience will be thinking and kind of play off that? And he goes, no, I never do that. All I do is just do what I think. And it's like that can still kind of create some of that for them. And there's like pros and cons and overlap. And we get into sales and dating, some of that can become a little more clear or whatever.
Wait, but can you give some fun examples of what you mean? Because like I just downloaded 50 million words into my brain and I don't necessarily know what you mean. Like, what do you mean? What do you mean? Going, can you give an example? Like, what is how would an audience perceive that the creator is anticipating them?
Do you know what I mean? Yeah, what that would be just like a little more like that would be an obvious setup and payoff. Maybe that could like annoy the audience if they predict, they're like, oh, they're trying to do this. I get it, that thing.
If someone pulled out a gun and then was like, I'm gonna use this later, looks at camera, like
if they predict a twist before it happens, anything. Or like
maybe it's similar to when it's like the creator handholds the audience too much. It's a similar feeling, perhaps, and the audience, it's almost like the audience doesn't want their immersion broken. Like the creator is thinking of, oh, well, how will this come across to them? And I'm trying to manipulate or lead the audience instead of just
right. It would be leading or writing down to your audience, acting, giving them enough credit or room to figure stuff out for themselves.
Yeah. The second that they kind of become aware of like the meta that it's a story and the mechanizations of a story are happening, that can kind of ruin it.
If you go to the previous slide as well.
Okay, real quick, Alex VRB, welcome to my TED or Narwhal talk. You guys remember when Sam Hyde did a funny TED talk? That was like the best thing ever. From a while
I don't think I remember that. I haven't watched TED in a while. They have some good shows, but
it wasn't a real. He basically conned his way into doing a TED talk and then did a TED talk that was a parody of TED talks.
Okay,
really?
He took the piss out of the whole thing. You should watch it. It's one of his more famous things, I guess.
Check it out.
It was great. So like I wanted some examples of these.
Yeah, I have one example of that I can say off the top of my head is in one of my comics that's not published yet, but it's me and Matt, Kyrie Matt, I forget his last name right now, but we co-wrote it, and it's a Western, and it towards the end, it's like the group of people, they're digging up for some buried treasure, but then the army's coming into the fort, so they have to stop digging for the treasure, so they and hide. So they plant a sword in the dirt where the treasure is going to be buried, and then the three of them hide. There's two good guys and one bad guy, and it just so happens that the bad guy gets a view of the sword in the dirt, and the other two don't. So he's kind of watching, and as he's watching, he sees like all day they have to stay hidden, and the soldiers, some of them are just playing a game throwing rocks at the sword, and one of the soldiers like is actually really good at it, and he nails the sword and it gets knocked away, and he goes, set it back up, I'll hit it again. They get interrupted. So the bad guy just witnessed the sword get moved in the dirt, and the other two don't know that. So then this is what the audience would then have, like they can juxtapose. It would be cross-referencing, kind of would be the verb. But they know that the two good guys don't know that the sword no longer represents where the gold is, and they know that the bad guy does know this. So then as you go into the final scene of at night when they do sneak out and reconvene to dig up the gold, the audience bringing this context to the situation will give it a lot more interactivity and a lot more fun to see how it plays out. So that would kind of be an example where it's pretty good. I like that one because it's kind of specific and weird too, because you can think of like just someone lying or whatever, like every Columbo episode is all about dramatic irony.
Something being hidden, and then the person it's been hidden from seeming like they would have just discovered it, but they don't act as if they've discovered it yet, right? Like, it's one of my favorite kinds of tension. The only one, like you can imagine, like in Inglourious Bastards, where you have like the Jews under the floorboards in the French guy's house, and then when the like, don't know what his name is, the investigator guy is like giving a speech. It like seems like he knows they're there, and he's just like waiting to reveal it, but you're not quite sure. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Any Tarantino said this too. He's like, I don't know why, but I really like undercover scenes, and undercover scenes are naturally like pretty awesome because the audience will be juxtaposing two realities constantly. Like they know this one person has two identities instead of one. They know everyone else doesn't know that.
Right.
So it becomes, and he does like mathematical stuff with it. That's like, I'm like, did you literally like almost do this mathematically? Because it's like he's schooling everyone. But there's a scene in his Western, what's it called, Django, where they go in undercover to the dinner, and then halfway through, Samuel L. Jackson calls in Leonardo DiCaprio and he tells him those two aren't who they say they are. So then it flips, literal table turning, because it's at a holiday dinner. And then Leonardo DiCaprio enters the dinner again and pretends like nothing's happening. But now he's the one who's undercover because he's the one who knows that they're undercover. Then they don't know.
That stuff builds natural tension and drama and almost all these things, paranoia and suspense. And I like that you brought this up because I've never really thought of those things as audience participation, but it makes total sense. I really dig that.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the things where I've always wondered what was the appeal of the way the Song of Ice and Fire books are written. How, if you guys know, the chapters are all POV chapters from characters, and I had thought for a long while, what was the point of it? Because it is impressive that George keeps track of all the characters' internal opinions and what they each know, and like you kind of have to do that as a writer, anyways. But you have to kind of compartmentalize and put yourself in the shoes of all your characters, and especially with a complex story. I mean, that's honestly one of the hardest things about writing, about just like keeping track of what everyone knows and being realistic with how they would react to things. But on top of that, he's narrating from their point of view, so it's not just their external actions. And on top of that, in a lot of his chapters, the narrators are unreliable narrators. So they'll be talking about a past event and their recollection will be different than somebody else's. So you kind of have to piece things together. And that's a kind of our audience participation. Honestly, I've been thinking for a while, it's like, oh, it's just showing off to make it look more complex than it actually is. But no, it is actually pretty complex. And he's a good character writer. I have other thoughts about his like world building, but that is actively interacting with the audience and also trusting your audience to be intelligent enough to figure it out. They're not hand-holding the audience through that.
Like, you're making me think of another example, like the perfect example of the point of view stories. What is the film again? We brought it up before. It's like The Last Joust or whatever. You know, where those...
Last Duel.
The Last Duel, like that is pretty much the same story told 3 times from different perspectives, and like you have to try and figure out what the truth is. Like all 3 of the narrators could be unreliable.
Yeah,
I've sort of been frustrated though, because I find that it's hard to do those kind of single perspective stories in any visual medium, and whether it be comics or films. If you guys know about like some theories about The Shining, there are theories that a lot of that movie are it's basically Wendy's hallucinations, and she's the one going crazy. So and we like there's a lot of like that movie went through a lot of retakes, and you know, they were very specific exactly how it was shot, but it was never explained the truth behind it. But yeah, I don't know. What do you guys think about that?
Do you think it's difficult as a creator to do that? Because as the creator, you want to define what everything is almost, and not let it be up to a question. Like, say you weren't going to give some of the answers, and you were going to leave them open to interpretation. Like, would you as a creator be okay with not telling them?
I try to do that. I try to not handhold the audience, because like every time I've put anything out, it's the lessons one lesson I've learned over and over again is the audience is very smart, and often smarter than me. So I don't need to hold their hands, and I can withhold things, and it's also more fun for them, and I think it just makes the story better and more realistic if you put how the characters would react first, and just kind of let everything be told by implication. Or some things be told by implication.
I think that has its place, but it depends on the story you're telling. Like some stories, and probably most stories, you as a creator want there to be a definitive canon and, hey, this happened. But like what you were saying with the Wendy theory thing, I think another good example of that is American Psycho, especially the film, where at the end of the film, there's a lot of evidence that he may not have done any of these things, and he may not have killed anyone, and he's crazy. And they leave it to you at the end of the film, and then also through it in the climax. Like, and a lot of that comes from the book as well, where there's a scene where he fires a gun at a police car, and it explodes like a Hollywood movie, and that just embellishes the reality and bends it, and making you believe that everything's in his head. You know, when he sees feed me the cat on the ATM machine, and he's holding the cat and stuff, he's just seemingly hallucinating this stuff, and then everything just starts to unravel, and then at the end you're left with, you don't know if he killed anyone, if he killed one person, if he ate anyone's brains. So that, you have to be careful with that too, because if it's not pulled off correctly, it could leave your reader or viewer angry, because a lot of people don't like stuff that is unsettled, you know?
Well, it can deflate a situation, the attention too much as well, as if you give too many answers. Like if I want to make a comparison, I recently finally watched The Prestige, and kind of like a central part of but a central part of that is talking about how, like, you have magic tricks, and if you explain the trick, you're worthless now. Do you know what I mean? And it's like telling a story is almost like the magic trick, and if you actually specifically say the answers, it can ruin it. Whereas if you kind of like give, like, the idea of a magic trick is you give a hint to making it feel like people think they might know what the answer to the trick is, without telling them the trick.
Or you give answers just right at the end, kind of thing. Like, but I know, like, speaking of, so it is like, which is more light bulbs for the people, a lot of these decisions, and you can go with whatever gives you more light bulbs. But like, for a couple of quick examples, like Twin Peaks, people talk about that one too, because David Lynch commented on this, but he was saying, I don't want to reveal the killer, because when you don't know the killer, everyone's a suspect. That's kind of fun for the audience to, like, kind of suspect everyone, and they're kind of running it through.
Everyone's a light bulb.
Yeah, it's a million little light bulbs. The second you let them know who the killer is, you lose all that. You gain one thing, which is funny. Then you can do suspense. This is like a mystery and suspense thing, is like a POV question versus what POV are you giving the audience? Are you giving them God's eye perspective or like the character's perspective kind of thing? And Hitchcock talks about that, and he gives like the opposite argument where he says if it's mystery, say it's two people eating and a bomb is under the table, and you don't know a bomb's under the table. Well, so he says just two people eating, then the table blows up, so you find out there's a bomb under the table. That's actually mystery because you didn't know anything until the end. You get the answer. Suspense is they tell you the God's eye point of view. You know what the characters don't know, and you know that there's a bomb under the table the entire time. And so he says that's more light bulbs because that gives the whole scene a charge rather than just one moment. But then it's funny because the flip side with Twin Peaks, it's like the mystery's better. But that's one thing that Star Trek did that was awesome. They start every episode, the original series way back in the day. They start every series with mystery, then you find out, and then it's suspense for a little bit, and then it's kind of wrapped up after that. So you can get both, but you have to go mystery first, then suspense.
Awesome. I love it. Funnily enough, you can kind of apply the same thing to promoting your book, but I don't think we're going to get into that. But like, not giving too many specific details. You just kind of like, you have the mystery at the beginning, and then you can build suspense by like showing what you would know about the story and what the characters wouldn't. Like, you can kind of do it.
And one more real quick thing is another kind of great example is Columbo, which I've become a huge fan of just in the last year. I got the box set and I've been watching all of them. And that show blows me away though, because it's a formula and every episode is exactly the same. And I'm like, why am I never bored? Why do I love it so much? And it's not redundant, even though it's like exactly the same. Kind of like Scooby-Doo is usually the exact same formula. But
Norn Rad just said that in the chat, Columbo, like every episode.
Yeah, for Columbo, it's an interesting one because it's a murder mystery, but they tell you who the killer is right away. So you get the God's eye point of view. And then, so it's not even necessarily suspense, but it could be. But when you see Columbo talking to the killer, you know that they're lying. So you're bringing the extra context of the situation.
Columbo doesn't know he's the killer yet?
Yeah, Columbo doesn't know. So the audience is tracking the two different kind of points of views. And basically what that is dramatic irony. And that's like all... And dramatic irony and suspense are like identical, except suspense is like more action based and dramatic irony is not, I think. But Columbo, so it's just massive dramatic irony for an hour straight and then it's over. And the Columbo's so likable that they can do it over and over again. It never gets old, really.
Every time Columbo says, one more thing, is that like 50 million light bulbs turn on every time he says one more thing? Like,
oh my God, he's going to say it. Oh, he said it. He said it.
Light bulbs.
Fan service. You know what's funny? I was looking at the dates for Columbo. It started in the 70s. The last episode was like 2001. I was like, wait a minute. Columbo was like super old at the end. He was making TV movies up until he died, I think. But
and then when you have something like the characters and one more thing bit, you have a meta dramatic irony that you're waiting in suspense for when he says the line. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well, that too is like Miami Vice did that a lot too, where you'd see the viewer would be hanging out with the bad guys for a little bit, even before they even ever cross paths. And that's what we kind of based our Magic Cop I guess format around as well, where it's not a mystery. The audience knows who the bad guy is. The story is about tracking him down, car chases, and bringing him to justice.
Yeah. So that's a pretty good baseline context to try and see if there's any overlap with sales and dating. And one of them is the dentist system. And I was just thinking, so it's the D is demonstrate value. And that's one way you can demonstrate value in storytelling is by providing the God's eye point of view to the reader is like a little bit of like, it feels a little bit more like valuable information because like, ooh, this is like, you're showing me behind closed doors or you're showing me two things at once. I'm getting extra power in this situation. Like the audience does appreciate that. And that, I don't know how that would exactly it's a little bit different if it's Dennis seducing a woman, how he demonstrates value, but
I don't know. This could be interpreted in many different ways. It's like I wasn't expecting this to actually have any connection with storytelling, but now that
it totally
we're actually talking about it, it makes sense. You can demonstrate value with. I'm thinking of it more in a context of if when you're pitching a book or when you're presenting for example, your campaign. The first thing you should do is demonstrate, well, catch their attention. And what do you do with that? Have a nice presentation and good art that always catches attention, or have a creator's name that is trusted that people like, and engage physically. That can be interpreted as either throw in something flashy like action that's physical, or be on streams and engage with the audience. And I can keep on going, but this is actually like
I hadn't when I saw it engage physically, I'm like, oh, just put boobs on the cover. But with you relating engage physically to like being on streams, having actual audience interaction,
have your damn camera on.
Yeah, Phil.
Engage us physically, Phil.
Put some work in.
The implication, any implication ever is and Dennis in this situation is this. Like, this is Dennis, this is the girl that he's running the Dennis system on.
What is the what is Dennis's the implication as related to storytelling? Is that just the suspense?
That's not even the Dennis system, right? That's a different episode, but that's where, if he gets them alone on a boat and he's the only person who can save them, they have to sleep with him because of the implication.
The implication. But so you're going to rape these women? No. I would never rape. I would never rape these women. But there's the implication. No one's saying rape. Oh, okay.
Is anyone saying rape? So nobody's saying rape.
No one's saying that. Just there's the implication.
So what about nurturing dependence and neglect emotionally? Neglect emotionally is a strong one with storytelling that you could almost count it as teasing. And teasing and storytelling is awesome. I've had that written down in a notebook for like a few years now. Like, whenever you can do it, like, the audience, they love to be teased, but you got to pay it off, but it's being teased. There's a million ways that can play out too. But even just like if a character gets shot and you don't know right away if they're dead or not, and you're like, the audience being like, are they alive or dead? I'm not sure. And you don't answer the question right away. You answer like a few scenes later or whatever.
What is nurturing dependence within a story? That is like,
I could interpret that as, well, no, as in that. I think that in my mind, that ties pretty easily into not handholding your audience, like encouraging your audience to actively think about the story and put two and two together, trusting your audience, like, and just presenting things but not over explaining. And neglect emotionally is also kind of like being willing to leave some mystery. Nurturing independence could be interpreted, if you pay attention, you'll figure it out.
Well, he says nurturing dependence. That is like
dependent.
Yeah,
so
that is like it's.
I guess it can work either way.
Well, hear me out. So nurturing dependence would be conditioning your reader to react a certain way. And this is exactly what you do you're talking about the Prestige in Magic as well. You condition the viewer that you're doing the magic trick to you do something in repetition so they're used to it. And then you do it out of repetition and it makes a bigger impact.
Oh, like the misdirection of the repetition.
Right. Well. And so you're doing this thing, you do it 2 times over here. When you do it the 3rd time, they're going to look there because they've already done it 2 times. And then over here, you're doing something else that you don't want them to see. So you're doing something out of the repetition. So you make your reader dependent on your moves. And then when you do something that's out of sync with what they're used to, it makes a bigger impact. You do that in storytelling, you do that in poetry and stuff like that.
Well, that's almost like the punchline of a joke, right? You have like 2 things in a thing, and then the 3rd one is a surprise. Like comedy essentially is the surprise. You build the dependence, and then you twist it at the end.
Yeah, Stendhal's method was to generate attraction, then apparently withdraw interest to activate her imagination, then repeat that cycle until she becomes obsessed, requires her to have imagination. It makes me think just the more light bulbs, the better still kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, engage their imagination, then end that chapter, and then don't put another chapter out for a year.
That
no, don't do that.
Yeah. It's not in the slideshow, but the game where someone were to play, usually it's like a girl plucking petals off of a flower and playing "He Loves Me Not." Yeah. That is an unsettled like thing where her imagination is running wild. And if that were to be settled, like if the boy called her right in the middle of that game, and he's like, I actually do like you. You don't have to do that anymore. She'd be like, hey, don't tell me that. I want to play this game.
I'm picking them.
Yeah.
I was picking these petals off here. You ruined it.
Yeah. And you know what that is on the list too? It's of these. It's paranoia. A girl.
Paranoia.
Yeah. It's the unconfirmed like 2 possibilities is paranoia.
Mm-hmm.
And also, like you're saying, the mind running wild is like a fantasy thing. That would actually make a great like 4-panel comic strip of a girl playing the game. She gets the call. And then, like, the punchline is like, "Well, you're a party pooper." Like,
she could get the call, and the speech bubble is just like not text. It's like, but you don't know what is being said on the call. And then the last panel is like the flower on the ground without all the petals removed.
Yeah.
Right. So that like she was interrupted in the game, and she decided like, there's no point in me doing this. But you don't know whether it was because he liked her or not.
Yeah, maybe. Now we're in a question. I don't know. It could go either way. Your Phil's are like they're the same, but one's a little bit more.
Yours is like more philosophical, and mine's a little more humorous, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, funny enough, having the last panel being the flower without all the petals taken off, that's like not deciding what the canon was,
right?
And letting that interactivity continue forever, like. Fully neglecting emotionally.
Right.
I would interpret that as kind of these 2 are clearly tied together, or we're both thinking of them as tied together. And nurturing dependence is making you care about the characters, having compelling characters that you want to keep following. But then don't be afraid to fuck up your characters or leave some mystery to it and put them at risk, which is a neglect emotionally part, because then your audience cares about them, and they're compelled to keep on reading to find out what happens because they're emotionally invested.
Yeah.
Or you could cut to another character and follow them for a bit, and the audience is like, I want to see what the other guy's up to, and you're like, in due time, you must.
Trick them into reading 3 more books before you go back to the character that everybody loves.
You sound bitter. You sound bitter, Irene.
No, what? No. Song of her.
And then there's an easy way to apply these, and maybe there's something deeper, but inspire hope and separate entirely is basically a really good ending to a story. Will do that. If you inspire hope and separate entirely, the story's over, you walk away. And that could apply to if it is like the dating situation with Dennis or whatever, but just anyone, if you have a good time with someone and it ends, that's like the end of a good story. Good stories make you think about them after they're gone. And it's a weird feeling because you love the ending and you're happy it's over, but you want to take the ride again or whatever. And
or like
Dennis is waiting there.
There's always like, back in the 50s, like maybe your great grandmother had a layover in Paris and she met some guy and they had the best one night of their life. And then they went their separate ways and never to talk again. And they have that always in their memory as like that was a great ending because that's all it was. It was just this immediately separated and then nothing more was left to go downhill.
Yeah. We were talking about this on last week's episode about how American storytelling is incapable of letting anything end, but a story that ends has more value. And that kind of ties into why I think that really makes a difference. You have to separate entirely and let things go.
It's funny too, in this, it's like a negative context, but for stories, it's the exact same words, but it's a positive context, I think. Like, especially if a story ended without finishing the story, that would be pretty terrible.
It's really annoying when stories don't end. I think, I don't know if it's like it's too philosophical to say that storytelling kind of is almost a psychological handbook on how we can solve real life problems. There are often allegories for the issues that we face, and like the whole saying about how you can live many lives if you read, but if you don't, you only live one life. And so if there's no ending, there's no meaning, because our life's not meaning because we know we're going to die. Or also, there's another argument that storytelling is essentially like an argument. It's an argument about even a lot of stories that are comedies. The best stories usually have a somewhat message, even if it's not very strong. And that's essentially like it's an essay, but framed in an entertaining way with engaging characters. And if it never ends, you essentially never finish your argument, just keep on talking, and you don't prove your point.
Yeah. Yeah. And we're this, a lot of this applies to sales, and it could be what Rini's saying, could be like someone that you're pitching to and they get annoyed. Like Rini's almost getting worked up as she talks about it.
What? Never.
Yeah.
God, here we go.
Yeah, that doesn't happen often. So we're gonna get into the sales stuff. So I don't know how many slides I have, but I have two Twitter people that I follow. One's a sales guy, one's a dating advice guy, and I peppered them, and we'll just see how they apply. But
what the hell am I looking at right now?
Bow-tied sales guy posted this one. It's Chads versus Clowns starting the call. And this one, he says, focused on disqualifying. The purpose is to quickly get rid of tire kickers and address issues early on. Get to the no by front-loading objections. You're like addressing like the real issues to break through. In my experience, there's usually 2 or 3 reasons why we won't work together, even if we wanted to. Why should I share, or should I share what they are? And then this one that you jump in and you're like, this is kind of the more needy, nice guy version. And storytelling wise, that there might be a version of this, but I'm not fully sure yet. But it's like, sell them, win them over. We're going to get them. Avoids potential objections, confrontation, and waits to deal with it at the end after they've been pumped and dumped. So what's got you interested in a billing software like ours? Like kind of basically, I just take it as this one's needy, this one's disqualifying, and makes the reader, if we say the reader, qualify themselves is what they do. And it is like it's this, one is with lots of light bulbs and one is with no light bulbs. And so I don't know. Yeah, so we'll just go to another one and see. We'll read.
No way, I want to figure that one out. What do you mean? Chat is I'm as confused as you are.
To Jake.
Yeah, like I don't know what you mean. What is an example of this? Like, what are these two different characters really? Like, what is a needy salesman? Like, what is the Chad salesman actually doing? Do you know what I mean?
Main thing is he's making the salesperson qualify themselves. This is at the end. This is like sales 101, I guess, but this is at the end of Wolf of Wall Street. He's like, the line DiCaprio says to the guys, he's like, now sell me this pen. And the first lesson about that is the first question you ask is, do you like pens and want to buy a pen? Because I'm not even going to sell you on it if you don't want a pen. So you make them qualify themselves first. And then if someone didn't do that, if you're trying to sell a pen to someone who doesn't even want to buy a pen, that's like pretty bad. That's not going to work,
So is that addressing tire kickers early on? Is like, I've got a pen, I'm trying to sell it to you. If you don't want a pen, then I guess we're done here already. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, it's like early on filtering your audience a little bit and getting out the people.
It's also nagging though.
Yeah.
It's like making your seller be like, well, I mean, I like pens, I guess.
Yeah.
I was trying to think how to incorporate negging into this.
That's what it is. The person buying doesn't want to be the guy that doesn't like something, right? Because then, especially if you're this Chad guy, usually if you're a regular person, you want other people to like you. So if you got this badass Chad guy, it's like, you like a pen? You don't look like a person that likes a pen. I'm not even going to sell this to you. And then you're like, what? I like a pen?
How would that apply to a story then? How would that apply to a story?
Well, a simple way is maybe overly simple is just, it's like for the dating, it's like quote unquote be yourself, or it's like be confident and present your vision, and you're not trying to please people, to get more sales or whatever.
So it's don't have too much mystery at the beginning. Do something that's going to be authentically part of your story. Like, if it's an erotic book, have a sex scene. If it's an action book, have an explosion. If it's a mystery, show someone dead, but you don't know who killed them pretty much at the start. Potentially is that how it can apply?
Here's 2 examples from hey, we got Adam Post in the chat. What's up, Postman?
Adam Post, what's up, Postman?
What up?
Hello.
So here's 2 examples from a little step back. Broader.
Adam Post is good at sales, by the way. Sorry, but okay. So continue.
A little broader view of it is don't present your book as something it's not, right?
Yeah.
Just to get likes or something. And then also for someone that's creating a book, the books that are going to sell the best and that are going to be the best are the ones you're most passionate about, the ones you want to do. Don't look at someone else is doing and be like, oh, that's selling really well, I'm going to do that, because then you might not have as much soul in that project. And you're doing something that you don't want to do, you know.
So
I think it's. Oh, sorry. You can go ahead.
The chat. So that if it's a murder mystery, the chat version is show the murder with not all the information, and like that's your story. But the fucking clown version would be, here's a car chase for like 20 pages before we get to the murder mystery, because car chases are cool, right? Like, I'm gonna sell you on this car chase, right? Even though it's not even an action thing, it's like a murder mystery.
Yeah, I could see that as a example of this.
I think of this in regards to sales tactics as well, and just how you present, or if you're like, I'm thinking about crowdfunding and how someone presents their campaigns and stuff like add-ons and how you sell it. You can, let's just say that the product here is about equal quality. Well, the good way to go about it is just be honest. Like, one is being honest about your product and just being open to your customers. And that's also not, that honesty extends to not adding in products or not selling the book to platforms that wouldn't be interested. Like, you're not gonna, I don't know, go to like a car mechanic shop, and I don't know, maybe some car mechanics read comics, but you wouldn't, like, I don't know, go try to sell your book to Marvel, I guess.
Yeah.
but I think but with some other, like the clown tactic is to be really desperate and chase whatever is popular. I really like what Phil said about that, this is what the algorithm likes, so let's do that. But the smart way is to pay attention to what sells and what's popular, but only conform to that if it already fits what your book is and what your idea is. That shows confidence.
Listen, imagine you're in a stream and you're presenting what your product is, and people are going, oh, so it's like this, or oh, is it kind of like this? And you say yes to every single one of them, and you go like, it kind of could be, like, sure. I guess it is, or maybe.
Yeah.
So here's an example. We've all heard the phrase, oh, this thing doesn't know what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And so it's like that, where you got to know what your story is. If you have a bunch of, like, it's a huge mishmash of genres, and it's a mystery with action and suspense and the manga thing, you know, this thing just doesn't know what it wants to be, probably is not going to be for the best of it. And you're probably catering too much to other people and not your story, because you usually cater to your story.
Yeah. Real quick, by the way, we got 124 people watching. Thanks everyone for being here. Creative block number 4. This show is going really well, or like this show in general. I mean, not this show, but our shows. It's 4
this
now.
One's going well.
This one is turning out. I'm glad you guys are in earnest playing along with my weird.
I didn't want to skip over everything.
It's a thought experiment.
I think what's helping is my chicken's really good too. So
yeah, put you in a good mood.
Helping me, yeah.
But yeah, I posted links in the description for each of us to like ways to support us and reach us. Jake, for yours, it's just your YouTube, but you've been posting lots of awesome YouTube shorts that I think everyone should check out. I've seen a few of the new ones, Jake. They're really awesome.
Yeah, check out my shorts, guys.
Yeah, the shorts.
And we all have Irene, Narwhal, and I also have books on Indiegogo right now as well.
Yeah, so the mods can post some links and see if we get any backers as we talk story related to sales and dating advice. And with Chads versus Clowns, I wrote this down as you guys were talking. I'm like, yeah, sounds like the Chad, he has a strong sense of self-awareness and a strong identity, and the Clown does not. And that could almost get into like stuff like theme and motifs in your story of, and that sometimes extends even to a knowledge of the whole field at large, like the meta theme. Like I feel like Tarantino's like that. Like he had a sense of the entire landscape of film before and then he knew exactly what he wanted to do because of that. Because
you got to know the market to know your place in the market.
Yeah. June Wong says, first time viewer, very good points in the discussion. Can you critique my super chat sales pitch for real Indiegogo? We'll send my 2 super chat of okay. Yeah, sure. Let's do it.
Sure.
Wait a minute. That how much was that? Was that $2? Now that's money. Oh, it was 5. Wait. That's $5.
Who's got a bonk?
Oh, do you want a bonk? Oh no.
Emotional.
What just happened?
There we go.
The show's over. Bye.
Press the wrong one.
I'm so confused.
That was separate entirely, but now I'm back. I ruined it.
Yes.
Okay.
I like
Hey!
Phil and Arian, you weren't here. He used the outro as the intro.
Oh no!
Oh really? Oh
Yes.
Hey,
Well done.
it's the
I
best.
pranked Jake. It was a good one. Jake.
I got
like,
pranked.
It's not supposed to be like that. It's not supposed to be like that.
Damn.
Hey, I'm not the guy on the right.
No. So yeah, I feel like we should move on. So let's see what this one says. Bowtied sales guy. Everyone believes the way to sell is to add value and convince the prospect how great you are by giving a killer demo. This is not how you sell. I guess that is quick, but that just kind of is like, that's a little bit more, this. And what you want to be doing is this. So you want to be doing stuff that gets them thinking, that gives them light bulbs. And there's ways that you can do that. It sounds like with sales, the one thing they keep coming back to is you make them qualify themselves, and how that exactly applies to storytelling is a little bit not clear.
Get convinced. It's like, no, you want it. Not, do you want to buy this? It's like, you want to buy this.
Yeah.
Like, I'm wondering what it means by it.
Yeah. Well, and even like just applying this to this, it's like if you're presenting, you're not like adding value. You're like trying to show exactly what you are to them, and you're trying to show it to people that would enjoy that or whatever. And then
Also too, like the have them qualify themselves is you make them invested, so they need to finish the book. They have to. They're so invested. The theme's so strong that they're so connected to these characters that they have to see what happens.
Yeah, I can imagine if you were saying like, tune in next week because I'm going to have a lot of cool sex and violence and titties. That's not as cool as like if you're like,
Yes.
Tune in next week to see what happens, because I hopefully set up a cool story and you want to see the characters or whatever, see what they do next kind of thing.
Yeah.
All you need is sex and violence and titties. We all know that.
or just say, you will tune in next week.
You will.
Yeah.
You will tune in next week. Don't
With
worry.
a spiral behind you on the thing. Woo!
Yeah. Swinging watch.
Yeah.
If you don't tune in next week, I'm gonna kill this baby.
Oh,
Damn.
yeah.
That was quickly.
Another way of doing it. Like,
disqualify yourself to win more deals. Most salespeople around a desirable prospect account try to show how great they are by doing demos and talking endlessly about how great their solution is. It's a form of insecurity because you are trying to build yourself up, has the opposite effect because it implies that you are not good enough. When you disqualify yourself, you are controlling the frame because you are telling the prospect you don't consider them a potential new client. This is why lines like this work so well. Most people who speak with us base this purchase solely on price. Is that going to be the case here too? Or why don't I start by telling you who we don't work with, because you may meet any of that criteria. It could save you a lot of time. This is frame control. Frame comes up a few times between dating and sales. And
Interesting. I also, from what I noticed about sales, you have to pitch differently to other people. So social intelligence factors in a lot, and the first step is definitely to determine what, even if I present like this as the best comic ever or whatever I'm selling, would they buy it? This person just is completely not interested. So that's the first step, but there's more after that. Like different people, if someone's coming from American cons, or if I was pitching someone in Japan, I would do it differently. And that's,
Yeah.
Well, I mean, imagine saying like in a pitch, to be honest, if you don't like the kind of manga vibe, it's not for you, or something like that. That could act in a similar way. Where people go, well, I'm not into it.
Yeah, but I'm against that though. I always say, even if you're not, this isn't just for manga readers. You know, there's more to it, and I'll tell them about the story.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you could. It's like a form of getting them to qualify themselves, is you asking them questions so you can better pitch them. So if you find out they're Japanese, like you're saying, or if they're American, that's almost like a qualifying question that you can ask them.
Yeah, I think what matters in regards to what we do is being aware of what media the audience you're talking to has seen. Because if your normal pitch is listing off a bunch of European comics that nobody's seen in the stream you're on, the pitch isn't going to work. So you have to figure out, have some nuance and be aware of the platform you're on, the people you're talking to. But I actually kind of disagree with the idea of just like determining, well, do you want to buy this? Well, you're not interested in comics, so I'm not even going to pitch to you. I'm against that. I would try to sell it anyways.
Yeah, I kind of like that you're trying to win people over. There's probably an angle where you could approach that of like, well, you don't like comics, you think, but do you like, movies? Do you like storytelling? Do you like fiction?
Yeah,
this is a lot. This is like in that.
Well, isn't
Did
that...
you know that comics could be any genre? Something like
that.
Yeah.
Jake, were you gonna say something?
Yeah, I'm trying to think about what Rennie's saying, because like the way that, so if I'm gonna like deconstruct that's like saying, don't worry guys, like it has something for everyone. Whereas like I think what this is saying, it's like the doing the tire kickers early. Well, okay, it's like saying to someone, hey, listen, if murder mystery isn't your thing, then this might not be for you. That's not like telling people don't buy it. I think the psychology in this tweet is saying, if you say something like that, you then get the audience to say, well, actually, maybe I do like that thing.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, it's not like trying to build this bridge to them. It's like, I think this is talking about framing it in such a way where they go, it causes them to make a decision of like, wait a minute, maybe I do like it, instead of the worry of like the clown or the insecure salesperson would be like, if I don't find some way to relate to whatever they like, then I'm losing a sale. Whereas this feels like it might be the opposite, where it's like, if you tell someone, don't worry, you don't want this, and then they go like, wait, yeah, I do. What if I do? What if I do?
No, but I don't think everybody reacts that way. I think that's absolutely silly. And it's not being insecure by saying,
I'm not talking about everyone.
Even if you don't like murder mysteries, you should check this out. And,
Yeah, it would be an interesting experiment to see if it worked in that context. Because it would be scary. I'd be scared to be like, to kind of push people away a little bit.
Right. I think it's not a 1-to-1 ratio with this going to story thing. I think if you frame it in a either comically sarcastic way, or if you're like, if you're the kind of person that doesn't like stories about badass heroes kicking the ass of Nazis, then this book's not for you. So
because that's what it is. Yeah,
right.
No,
I like what Josh Stepp is saying in the chat.
You'd have to frame it where it's like, of course, everybody's going to want to say that they're cool with that,
I don't. Yeah. I disagree, and I disagree with Josh Stepp is saying, because that sounds too much to me like, well, if you don't agree with this or that, don't buy my book. If you don't have my book, don't buy my book. To me, it sounds too different. It's not insecurity to be like, well, if this isn't your genre, then but you should take a look at it, please. Like, you should take a look at it anyways. There's a lot of gray area between acting desperate and just saying, hey, it's maybe you haven't tried this genre or the books you've read with a manga style, because I've been doing this. Like I'm selling to people who have never read manga before, and I have a manga style, and I always tell them, even if your impression of a manga is like kiddie shit and shonen, maybe you don't know the full scope of it, and that's totally fine. I am also influenced by all these other things, and more importantly, my characters matters. This is what the story is actually about. Check it out. You won't be disappointed. So there's like a gray area over there.
Yeah, like the don't buy my book thing is like the extreme version when you turn the potential buyer into an active enemy.
You know what I mean? You don't actually care if you get sales or not. This thing that Gnarl's bringing up is a mind game sales tactic that salespeople use to win kind of I don't know, normies over.
Yeah, I'm not saying you should do this. I'm trying to just decode what this tweet actually is.
Yeah, and this might not even
that you
apply
should...
super well to what.
Right. It applies to sales in general, but it probably is not a 1-to-1 ratio to applying for what we're doing.
Real quick, let me catch up here. June Wong says, "Hey, streamer name, trying to sell some wholesome, family-friendly comics on Indiegogo. Can I get a shout out? We'll super chat the title if it's okay." Yeah, let's do it. So then he says, previously on Clownfish TV, a new collection of official comic strips based on true stories from our favorite YouTube family. It includes how Keon met Geeky Sparkles, the tale of the epic 80s toys, and the run with the evil Kevin Smith. It sounds good.
I've seen that
we can
before.
Get some mods posting links in the chat for this and help June Wong out too. And if there's a link, we can even take a look at it maybe a little later or something.
Was June Wong was June Wong who was asking for us to critique their?
I think so.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
If oh, go ahead.
Super quick. I've seen that before. So you're already doing the one principle of like, if you want to sell something to someone, they've got to hear about it like 5 times before they make the decision. I've seen that super chat twice now. So like you're 2 into the 5 to convert me. You know what I mean?
Nice.
That's what I wanted to throw in.
Yeah, that's a good point. I would say that I like the comic strips based on true stories from our favorite YouTube family. That's a good pitch. Not everyone knows who Neon and Geeky Sparkles are, so I would rephrase that as it includes how our charming mother and father or husband and wife meet, something like that. And then not everybody's gonna know who Kevin Smith is. So think of a funny name to replace him with, like their arch nemesis.
Although the specificity does define your market, you are defining your product very well by like, hey, look, if you're not interested in the Clownfish TV guys, if you don't know who these are, then you're probably not going to be interested. If you don't know who Kevin Smith is, I don't know.
I don't think so. I think if the book's well done, even if you don't know who they are, it could be fun. So if you're on a channel that knows who Geeky Sparkles and Neon are, then use this pitch. And if not, you can switch it to something else. Just a thought.
There you go.
Yeah. One thing it reminded me of, speaking of if it's the light bulbs, he got us talking about it for a minute instead of just reading it for 5 seconds.
Right. I had the light bulbs because I'm like, who's Neon and Neon?
Well, no, the light bulbs was the first super chat too, though, right? Like the almost irritating asking to ask a question, but in this scenario, it's not irritating because you paid for it.
Yeah,
that's true.
Okay, so at the end of this, he goes, "This is frame control." And I think frame control loosely, it's like if they're asking you the questions, especially if you're trying to sell them and they're asking you questions, that's usually, you don't want that. You want to be asking them questions like, how can I better serve you to figure out if you're someone that, we can work together or whatever. That's sort of it, I guess. So then the next one, it's dating advice from Rivellino. He goes, "If she says you have a small dick, just say she has a big pussy." Frame control.
Frame control.
Frame control.
She's got a heavy frame. I'm not interested.
How does this apply to storytelling?
If she says you have a small dick, say she has a big pussy. If you're saying, "Oh, your story sucks," and it's like, well, you just have bad taste. I don't know. Like
when they say frame control, that's like a reframe, right? And reframes can be useful in all sorts of different ways. But you're
perspective, right? It's a perspective thing, how you're looking at a situation. I mean, that's like, you could equate that to anything in comics, like literally paneling or point of view from character, or perspective. I mean, it's definitely will help with character development too, because how they have like, they say like every villain is a hero of their own story. That's a frame control thing, and that's a perspective point where, if you want, and I don't think every villain should be like that, but you can have different areas of depth with characters if they think of themselves a certain way and they're feeling at fault by the protagonist.
It's like a twist in the story is the frame control too, right? Like you understood it to be this, and now there's a twist, and then it completely reframes the whole story. Like M. Night Shyamalan.
Yeah, because there could be a point where the audience has the upper hand and is on the verge of potentially getting bored, and if you have like a twist right at that moment, they would be like, "Oh, okay."
If we go back to your example of the bomb under the table, that whole situation between mystery and suspense is frame control.
Yeah, that's cool. So you can switch it up anytime to get out of a tight spot. If you're in a tight spot, frame control. Bowtied Sales Guy. Imply the feature so they ask for it. Don't tell them outright. That's light bulbs again. Like, you're doing the work for them if you're telling them it. So you want them to, you imply it and you have them do the work. The clown would say, want to learn more about our email verification feature? The dragon says, a lot of our clients are worried they get high bounce rates. The high bounce rates are damaging their domain score. I'm guessing that's never happened to you. That gets them talking, gets them thinking, gets the light bulbs in their court, rather than you're the one and they're just sitting there. I guess that's, as I say it, I'm like, getting the ball in their court is like a good thing to do whenever you can. And then they're kind of working with it, and that's where some of the interactivity can be. And
I'm trying to think of how to apply it to the story. That's what I'm trying to
that's why you always carry around the Uno reverse card, so you can just be like, no, you, and then you reverse them. That's what that situation is.
Bounces off me and sticks to you. Can you say that in the middle of a story somehow?
Bounces off me and sticks to you. That can kind of apply to, like, my mind keeps on thinking more about pitching than really storytelling. But it's like, well, you wouldn't go up to someone and be like, hey, do you want to hear about my comic? Because you'd be like, hey, I have an awesome comic, buy it now. That's the difference.
Yeah, it is like the needy kind of thing is what's not working in almost every situation. And I have wondered, like, what is needy storytelling? And it's a little bit more abstract, but sometimes you can feel it. And it would be like, if it has not a good self-identity, it's kind of trying to please the audience more than just trying to like enjoy itself. Speaking of that, like, I even heard Cecil say that once in the interview on Rocket Magazine. He was talking about comedy, and he's like, I'm just trying to make myself laugh, and then that happens to make other people laugh. And I was like, that definitely could totally apply to like storytelling.
I'm managing to figure out how to. So I think I'm boiling it down to a show don't tell thing, whereas the want to learn about the email verification is like two characters going like, oh my god, where is so and so gone? Where is this character gone? What are we doing? Like, they're talking about it. Like they ask about, the characters talk about an absence of something, whereas like the second one could be, you visually represent the absence of something, and then the characters like react to it. It causes the viewer to ask the question of what's missing, rather than being told what is missing in the first one.
Or Jake, you like the jump cuts? Those are always pretty interactive because they imply a lot that's happened that you don't like. You actually don't even really show it, but it's implied in that case. So that's a big light bulb as people put it together. Like, you have the example where she finds out that the toaster is inhabited by her friend, so immediately cuts to her buying all the bread
in the shop.
So like the implication, like there, you could be like, show don't tell means we're going to show her going to the store and getting the bread. It's a step above that even because we're cutting straight to her at the store. The implication is that, oh, she went to the store. So that's a little light bulb. That
Well, it's like, why are they at the store? Why are they buying bread? Oh shit, the toaster. Oh, they're gonna go and take the bread to the toaster, right? Like,
yeah. That definitely is like, it's almost like a step above show don't tell though, which is funny.
But yeah, and then if the viewer is like, oh, they're gonna take the bread to the toaster, you don't show that. You jump ahead yet again to show that they've used the bread in the toaster already after the jump cut, and they're like, what?
Did I miss this toast in the shell discussion? Because I have no idea what the hell you guys are talking about.
I think nobody except us three know about this story.
Oh shit! No, Alex knows about toast in the shell. Basically, someone's friend dies and they think they're gone forever. Then they start getting messages toasted into bread, and then they're like, "What?" And then they discover that the person's soul was trapped in the toaster, and then they eventually build a robot body around the toaster that the toaster can control. Hence, toast in the shell, ghost in the shell. Someone's soul is trapped in a toaster, and they communicate initially through bread.
You should make that. That's cool.
Brilliant.
I'm gonna. It's from an old project that I mothballed, but I could just get all of my old ideas out of the trash and brush the banana peels off them. That'd be great.
You should.
That's what I did.
That one's come up a lot. It's a good one.
In private off stream, so no one knows what we're talking about.
Yeah. So what's this one say? Bowtied sales guy, prospect. Do you guys have experience in our industry? Clown. Yes. Most of our clients are in your space. Prospect. Shame. We were looking for fresh ideas. This is how you play yourself when you rush to answer a question before finding out why they're asking. What would you say in the situation? And then this person gets the correct answer. I guess he posts it later. Is experience in your industry something you're looking for? Like answering their question with a question.
This is interactivity in sales. This is just all different ways that a salesman is trying to incorporate interactivity into their sales practices.
Yeah. It's like the more light bulbs and you win. But this one reminds me a lot of this actually, where you're asking a question, and then if anticipating that they're then going to ask a question. But you want to know why they're asking the question. That's why it's like the magic trick. Like you have to set it up so that they ask the right question so that then you can knock it out of the park. But if you mess that up somehow, like if you give them too much of the feeling that you're manipulating them, they'll hate that. If you guess wrong, like if you fail to set it up correctly, so they're asking an entirely different question and you answer it wrong or answer a different question, they really won't like that. So, and when that is something that when it lines up just right, stories can do that, and it does feel really good. Like maybe just even a good twist, like M. Night Shyamalan, like Sixth Sense, like when it actually is a kind of cool twist at the end, the audience is like, "Oh damn, like he really kind of manipulated me." And
it's almost like why some people get disappointed with the Shyamalan twists because they might have thought of something cooler, and then they actually like he hasn't led the correct imagination thread, and they've thought of something cooler, and then when it collapses into the actual ending, they're like, "Oh,
yeah." That could be a backfire. I don't know. So it's funny because it's like both ways seem to work. Like hearing Takashi Miike be like, "I don't anticipate the audience at all." And you're like, okay, but you know his deal too. He's made like 200 movies, and 50 of them are masterpieces. And 150 of them are like not that good.
Yeah.
So I think that's sort of a debate I have with some writer friends as well, about like how much you should be aware of your audience and sell to them. And sometimes I think there's value to approaching it with just do a good job and the audience will come. Just focus on telling a good story, because if you're put your story first, the saying, story is king, and you can also apply it to sales, product is king. If you know your product and it's a good product, you won't have any trouble presenting it, and you won't be insecure, you won't seem desperate. And then the audience and your customers will come to you and you'll just naturally know how to put it out. Maybe that's like an oversimplification, but I don't know. I think it came true.
I love generalizations. That's really fun.
Yeah. Well,
Thanks, Jake.
Yeah,
I do them all the time.
The thing with what you're saying, Irene, where it's like, there's value to make this the best you can make it, and people will flock. But also, that could also lead to like you look at painters from the 1800s who never made any money, and they got super famous after they were dead because it was all appreciated afterwards,
Right. I'm not saying that that's bad. You're right. That's bad. And I'm not saying don't sell yourself. Just like sit in your hole and draw and don't sell yourself. But then your audience will magically come. That's not right. And that's the problem with a lot of artists, especially. We don't know how to talk to people and we don't know how to do sales. But I think if you, I guess what my theory is if you put the product first and you focus on that, and after you already have a really good product and you know what it is and you're confident about it, and then you start doing the sale, then that would be more successful. You're not thinking about you're not lying about what it is. Right. It's not well, I'm doing this because zombies are popular now, and you're trying to be like, yeah, this is the most deepest, amazing thing, and I've been wanting to draw like this story. I love these characters all my life, but really, you just have no idea what you want to say. But you just made this zombie comic because zombies are popular, but you're trying to make it something it's not.
The quality of the product, right? The quality of the product affects everything else. So it'll affect your confidence pitching it. It'll affect people being lured into it. And everything is elevated because of that foundation.
Yeah. Thank you, Frankie says, what I'm reading now, I think he's talking about manga, but the exit of goodbyes seems to be about death of a loved one, which arouses primal desires, the desire for them to come back, etc. Denki's been mentioning primal a lot in the chat, and I just want to say, I may possibly even like next time we do this on my channel, I might want to talk about that, because I've thought about that too, that primal stuff is way different, and it's very interesting. But one of the things about primal stuff is it doesn't need a setup. We understand it inherently.
Like birth, death, sex, violence stuff. Like
like I don't know. Like one example, my mom wrote a short story where I was like, "This is so good," but it's that a giant. It's by their house is like 15 minutes that way, and it's by the river, and there's giant cottonwood trees. And there's a storm the night of, and the biggest cottonwood tree in the forest falls. And so immediately the house bird and the house like mouse, some of these like friends, these like three animals, they just want to go see it. So that's the primal desire. Like the biggest tree in the forest fell, I want to go see it. So they go on this journey to go see it, kind of like that's
curiosity.
Like, yeah, really curiosity is totally one. Yeah, protecting the weak is one. Like a cowboy, a girl just asks for help and he decides to do it for no reason. That kind of stuff. But yes. Bowtied sales guy. The best questions are simple and loaded. How are you guys adapting to the unstable market conditions? Prospect, we are doing XYZ. Is it working? Prospect, not as well we would like it to be. And why is that? That's just, these are just, what are the questions that would cause the most light bulbs, that would knock it most in their court, that would up the interactivity for them. And bang for your buck possibly too, when he says simple and loaded. Loaded is kind of a good keyword. We can potentially go fast. There's like 6 left, and I remember 2 of them are awesome, so we might spend a little more time on those. But
this is interesting. If I may, really quick, I just had a light bulb go off when I was like, I've been doing a lot of home renovations, as everybody knows. And so I've been through this whole process of picking contractors for things. And the ones I've been most happy with kind of use this, but it's not like it's not so much the, if you don't like need windows, then, we aren't for you. Well, that's different. I already contacted them. I need new windows, but I remember the ones that, first of all, look at reviews. So I know that other customers are happy. So that's important, having just a good product to begin with. But they would, to determine, like, for example, what windows I want, they would ask, well, what's your priority? Do you want this or do you want that? And that's interactive. And I think in a way, there's no getting around, like that kind of sales is different than what we're doing. because we're not directly one-on-one trying to like sell. If we were pitching to a publisher, it would be more like what this guy is talking about, I think. But there's no getting around. You have to manipulate people just a little bit, because you almost want the person you're talking to feel like they decided they wanted this. You don't want to pressure them too much, but you want to ask questions and then make them feel like, yeah, this is great. This product will really solve my problems and I choose you.
Yeah. And I think there's a level of like competence where if you're doing that and doing it well, people don't really get offended, even if they know that's what you're doing. Because they'll be like, I get what this is, and I like how it's very professional, and we're just trying to exchange communication even at this point, kind of.
Do you know what? I would even buy a book sometimes, because even if it wasn't potentially the thing that I necessarily wanted to read, because I appreciated how well it was done. Like, that sounds really stupid probably to most people, but like maybe part of it's the collector aspect, but like, you know what, whatever this is, like you know what it is and you're doing it well, I'll buy it. And then maybe I'll like it. You know what I mean?
Well, the thing with the loaded questions is, like, going back to what I was saying about conditioning, like storytelling is a lot of conditioning and just playing with people's emotions so they'll enjoy and be entertained. So you bring up these loaded questions, which could just be plot points where you know the answers to them, but the audience doesn't know them yet. And so that's you're building suspense, and you're breadcrumbing the reader along, and you know that where the payoff points are gonna be, but they don't. So that's what goes back to that Dennis aspect, where you're building the dependency, where the reader's depending on you for answers, and give them that space so they could try to figure them out themselves. And then
what would you say an example of a loaded question would be in storytelling then? It's probably hard to think of one off the top of our head, so it might be a bad question to ask. But
if it's like a metaphor just for a really good plot development or something, I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, I think to keep a reader or watcher consuming your product, there's always, it doesn't even need to be a mystery story, because why are you compelled to keep on watching Star Wars when it begins? You want to find out more about this kid that seems really charming and very relatable, and who are the Jedi, and it's like that's one approach, not the only approach. You know, there's a classic hero's journey, but that's a question there. And the more the story progresses, the more questions there are. But that's balanced out by a lot of it being answered. Like, what are the Jedi? We know that now, but who actually is Darth Vader? We don't know that. Then we find out who Darth Vader is, but then there's more questions that are presented with that resolution, right?
Your example of Star Wars is kind of perfect for the loaded question thing, because you're talking about Jedi and, say, lightsabers and swords. Like, imagine the idea of a lightsaber or the idea of a Jedi. The loadedness of the question of who are they is, they kind of look like monks or religious people, but then the loaded question of a lightsaber is like, it's kind of like a sword, so it is a sword, obviously it's a light sword, but like a classic sword. So like, I wonder how these more fantasy historic kind of like past references of like religious orders and like the way Jedi dress is like monks and stuff, and like literal sword play from like fantasy and history, how that is going to play out in a sci-fi futuristic setting. Like, that is kind of like the loading of that question of what are those concepts, how are they going to play out.
Sort of like, you want to just a background feeling of, I want to find out more about this really interesting world.
But the loadedness is, it's making a reference. Like, a lightsaber is it's like making a reference to like old knights of the Round Table and all that stuff, like from history stories. But then like, you're putting that in a future setting. It's like you're loading it up with that past reference. But the question is, how will this play out in this different context of like interplanetary sci-fi?
Yeah, I like that. That is like, that's literally loading it with the previous juxtaposition or whatever they can talk about. Cool. Let's go to the next one. There's only a few more, like I was saying. This is not one of the best ones. There's two that are awesome. This one says, if you want to be friend zoned, just be really nice to her and help her with lots of stuff.
Yeah, do the opposite. So if you want to fuck, do the opposite.
Well, this for
become a problem.
For storytelling,
yeah, it'll totally work.
It's like what we were saying before with storytelling is you don't want to give the reader everything they want, you know?
Yeah.
You don't let the reader...
If you're holding their hand,
you don't let the reader control you or the decisions you make, is you tell the reader what to think by constructing this story and leading them down it. And because if you give a girl everything she wants and do everything, and she's going to see you as a servant and she's going to walk all over you. Same thing with this. If you're just doing things just to please people, and that's you could use that as a metaphor in any aspect of life. They're just going to see you and walk all over you. And you're not serving story, and you're serving something else. So,
this is essentially the opposite of making the reader feel vulnerable. Like I've heard from some women that women enjoy the concept of feeling vulnerable or vulnerability. So I wonder if there's like the opposite of this is like, how do you make the reader feel vulnerable or at risk? Like
invested or something.
Yeah.
I'm being the girl here because I never get this line of, well, yeah, just, don't do the things she wants. Be an asshole, then she'll
become a problem.
You more. I guess that's what a lot of women do.
It's not that. It's if you do this stuff, and not even just with women, people are going to take you for granted.
Yeah, you can't. I would say if you don't set boundaries, like whether it's a customer or even like your partner wants you to do something and you're not comfortable with it, you have to stand your ground, and then people have respect for you. That's not necessarily the same as being an asshole, but yeah, you need to stand your ground.
And in storytelling, if people take you for granted, you could look at it like this: from book to book, or you have a series of books. If you get to book 3 and you're doing everything the same, people are expecting it from you, then the sales might die off because they're like, oh, I saw that coming. This is exactly like the previous book, and you're not conditioning them and then throwing it off, a beat and then surprising them. You want the ebbs and flows and peaks and valleys.
Right. It's just it really ties into the beginning of like the Chad and the clown. Whether you have confidence in yourself or you're a doormat. And if you're a doormat, well, you're not making sales because you're the beta and nobody is going to respect you. And whether as a partner or as a salesperson or a business partner or anything.
One example too is this just applied to the light bulb thing. Like in this scenario, the girl has less light bulbs. And if you pull some of this back, if you have stronger boundaries, she'd have more light bulbs. And that reminds me that I was going to say this earlier, but there is like another Tarantino-esque mathematical scene that can be kind of like the worst scene in the history of storytelling. That's just hypothetical. I don't know if anyone's really done this, but it would be where you have someone say what they're going to do and then do it. That's almost just like the worst thing you could ever do. But if it's like the phone's ringing and they're like, I'm going to go get the phone now. And then they walk over and they get the phone and they say hello. It's just so bad. Like if anything like that kind of happens where it lines up where they're just saying what they're going to do and then doing it, that there's actually 0 light bulbs for that situation. And when you feel that as a viewer, you start to get bored, you start to get annoyed, you start to get kind of pissed. Sometimes I do almost. And like, that's like how I imagine like super doormatty people can kind of piss off a girl.
So they should say, I'm going to get the phone, and then like walk over to the wire that the phone's in the wall and rip the wire out of the wall.
Yeah. There's a funny anecdote from Louis C.K. on his show, Louis. He's in like a writer's room and they're talking about writing a script for a new comedy show. And everyone's pitching like the guy wakes up in the morning and he hits his alarm clock, that's kind of like an inside joke that's the most cliche way to begin a story, like in the history of stories. And so Louis, they're all just talking and Louis like, what if the dog does it? And they're like, what? He's like, what if the dog
Or just a pop.
It's like,
no, but you can imagine that in a comedy film. You can imagine the dog taking the alarm and like putting it in a laundry hamper and then going over to the human, and then the human like tussles them on the head and says, good boy.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then that's all comedy too, is conditioning your audience and then turning the world on its head. And then the comparison, the juxtaposition of those two things.
That could almost be like a loaded question of taking this super cliche beginning and spinning it would kind of be a light bulb. People be like, oh, we're dealing with someone who is aware and kind of feel or whatever.
We were talking about Shyamalan though, so I think that can be also taken too far. It's like almost this balance, this tightrope that you want to walk with keeping your audience on your toes, but not going so far as it makes no logical consistency.
Right. And then the same thing with him is he was doing a formulaic way of storytelling throughout his career where people then were expecting it and took him for granted, you know?
Yeah, and that's
even though he was doing twists, he wasn't surprising anyone because they expected the typical kind of surprise.
Yeah, if you do the same thing, if you do a twist over and over again, then it doesn't matter because you're just always doing it.
Unless it's Columbo.
That's right.
Okay, Bowtied Cells guy. Chad Maxim, number 155. The more difficult the question you ask, the more emotional they will get. That could almost just straight up be a Rivellino tweet, like a dating advice tweet. But that one, I kind of love that one. I'm not even sure exactly how that applies, but I read that and I was like, that's good. Like with storytelling, you want emotions. It's one of pretty much the ultimate thing you want is emotions, and that's what when the audience comes into a story, that's what they expect and hope for. And at the end of a story, if they get it, that's when they feel so grateful for the good story.
I have an example of this for writing. So and this is a specific example from the Dark Tower series, which I've been reading. The main character is literally, not literally, but he's in a crossroads, figuratively, and asks the figurative question of what are you going to save, the woman you love or the whole universe? All right. And that evokes so much emotion for whatever he chooses. And the fact that he chooses to leave the woman he loves in someone else's care, and he goes on this quest to save the universe, the pillar that holds everything together, that then just sprawls so much emotion out of that. So the harder the question or situation you put your character in, the more emotion that will be evoked in the situation.
Yeah, I think this can be applied to. I agree. This is pretty brilliant, and it can be applied to a lot of stories. The first one I thought it was Attack on Titan, but also it applies to Star Wars. The question is if your own father was the one that was like the greatest villain of all time, what would you do? Like, what decision would you make? And before Attack on Titan, I think that series was so compelling because essentially what it was asking was, if you turned out to yourself be a member of this oppressive group that had harmed you and that you vehemently hate, would you still be committed to destroying them all? Like this group that, the oppressed turn into oppressors, and would you be willing to stand by your vow of justice, of applying justice? And that's really compelling.
Yeah. It's a lot of it seems like it's like relatable. Everyone's saying, what if you were in that situation? And I think that's part of that light bulb. People naturally do that. There's one from the Alamo to the famous John Wayne movie, like where they decide to stay and they're all going to die, but they're deciding to stay anyway. That's like so emotional. It gives me goosebumps just thinking about it.
Sacrificing for something.
Yeah. I'd take a shot. I'm going to bring up Berserk. The question in Berserk is, wait, I haven't really reframed this. There are so many questions in Berserk. If your best friend destroyed your life and hurt the woman you love, how far would you go? How much would you sacrifice to get your revenge, even though it's destroying you and destroying her in the process? That's essentially the question Berserk is asking. And it's framed in fantasy. All these stories are framed in fantasy, but the core humanity is relatable to everybody.
Right.
I think another element of why a difficult question that you put your protagonist has to face, like another element of it is like the reader, it makes them want to help the character by figuring it out for them. Like you trying to think of the answer to like what they should pick is like you trying to help the character.
Yeah, it's almost like, why aren't you doing this? This is the right choice.
Yeah,
like I think it's very visceral that it makes you like that relatable. They seem that relatable because you're like I want to help this person.
Yeah, you're kind of like rooting for them, or there's some interactivity there too. Just as you're observing with like it can switch to where your observation becomes more like you're looking up to them, kind of even depending on the decision that they make, or looking down if you're judging them a little bit too.
Then if they make the wrong decision or something, like it almost makes you plead with them to correct it. Like another layer of interactivity. If they pick the wrong one, you're like, then for the rest of the story as you're watching them, you're like, please make this right. Please make this right.
Yeah. Emotional investment.
I'm reading a little bit of the chat. We'll just see. John Platt says, George Lucas, Steven Spielberg, J.R.R. Tolkien all had clearly defined heroes, villains in their stories and films. The real genius was in the development and progression of these characters, which the woke do not do that. Pretty sure.
Yeah, and that's the thing too. I was thinking when you guys were talking, where it's like the question, the hard questions need to be asked and answered, but at the right time. So if you pose that question of, is Roland going to let his woman he loves die to save the universe, or vice versa? If that's asked on page 2 of the series, it means almost nothing, because you don't know who Roland is, you don't know who Susanna is, or Susan, and you don't know anything about the world. So
because you haven't nurtured dependence first.
Yes, that's in the beginning.
Yeah, it works.
So, you have to get to the point and know when to put that question into play. That doesn't come up until I think book 3 of the series, maybe 4.
I think you can ask the question pretty early, and I'm thinking about someone brought up Tolkien, and in Lord of the Rings, the conundrum of the ring and how powerful it is, and the pressure on the ring bearer is presented very early, but it's sort of continually challenged in different ways. So the question doesn't go away until the literal last moment when Frodo is on the precipice, and like it's so. I think this is really interesting. I never thought of story that way, but you could frame story as not necessarily an essay, almost like, well, I'm proofing a moral essay. It's almost you ask a question about the character has a question presented to them about what would you do in this difficult situation, and you take them through that journey, and the audience would relate to that because you build a compelling character, and the question cannot be answered until the climax of the story.
You know, how that relates aren't there moments in Lord of the Rings where Frodo has to put the ring on in order to like survive a situation?
Sure.
So like that's a difficult question. Like, would you have put it on? Would you have made the decision to put it on? You know the repercussions of doing so, but then later on, it makes the final question even more difficult because he's had to put it on a couple of times, and he doesn't want to throw it into the volcano. Like those previous difficult questions and his decision, and like maybe making the wrong decision, like or the right one, like at the end, make it even more harder. The final decision that he has to make.
Yeah, multiple questions branch off of the first one almost.
Yeah,
right. Oh, definitely. Yeah, and you could ask the same question later on, and the character could be in a different part of their life, and the answer could be totally different.
Yeah, one of the most famous Star Trek episodes, and it's written by Harlan Ellison, and it's called like City on the Edge of Forever. It does that where it's just setting up the entire time for one question. And again, it's like similar to the Dark Tower question. Is Kirk going to save the woman he loves, or she has to actually die for the future to progress how it's supposed to, because it's a time travel one. So if she lives, then actually the world kind of ends because the Nazis win World War II. And because she started the anti-war movement too soon is like why. Even that's kind of interesting. But so in the end, he does like decide to let her die, and it's like, oh man, It gets you right in the feels. And Harlan Ellison won all sorts of awards for that. And it's like kind of simple what he did, but he just executed it. And then what's funny too is that the emotion is so strong that you kind of forgive the fact that the time travel doesn't necessarily make that much sense. Like they basically get teleported back by this godlike portal that can talk. And then once the adventure is over, they get the portal teleports them back. And you're like, well, you don't really even notice that that's borderline a plot hole because the actual story is like really good.
So good.
It's almost as if you don't ask a difficult question early on in your story, you're actually giving away so much interactivity that you could have had the whole time.
Yeah. Or at least at the end, you're like building to a question, right? I don't know if you need to ask it at the beginning or not.
Well, I think a story is comprised of many different questions. You know, like the one that I pointed out is not the only one. That's a big main one that evokes the most amount of emotion, I feel like. But everything else, the plot is just a bunch of smaller ones that get answered to get you from point A to point B.
Yeah, I don't think you need to present the question at the beginning. I gave it an example of Tolkien because I was just, well, what would be a contrast to waiting to present the question? I think there definitely is a time limit for you to present, well, this is what the story really is about. Maybe that's why people are annoyed by like Shyamalan's twist, because it's like he waits too long to present what the story is about. But at the beginning, you could sort of have like plant seeds about what the audience has to be interested, but you can have smaller questions like who is this character or what is this world. But eventually, before they lose interest on that, you have to present, well, this is the actual like big bad, the villain in the world, and so this is what the moral question is going to be going forward until the climax.
Cool. By the way, I think Jack's show started. We're bleeding viewers. We're at 65 right now.
Oh no!
Hey, we still got 65 beautiful people that we're obviously very happy to still be entertaining. So thank you all for still
Thanks for
watching.
being here. And some people will watch it later. And we got 4 more slides, and we can potentially go relatively quick. But
Let's keep going.
Yeah, we're at
You don't
2
have to
hours, which is a good
give
length.
up on these people.
You don't have to rush. Yeah.
Yeah,
do
these
what we-
people are great.
do
Imagine
what we
doing
want.
you would
Yeah,
would do a 2-hour stream for 15 people. Like, so you could carry this show on for the wonderful 60 still in
But
the
if it
chat,
gets to 14, we're ending it right away.
Okay, that's it. That's the deadline. If it hits 14, then the stream
By the way,
ends.
I tell people that my streaming identity is that I'm the guy who gets the best ratio of viewers to likes. So if you're watching, you have to affirm my identity and hit the like button.
Hit the like button.
We're at 105.
Do
so
it.
it's pretty good.
Yeah. Here's one from Rivellino. He goes, arguing with her is falling into her frame. We were talking about frame earlier, and I guess that would just be a negative thing. You can imagine if you're arguing with the audience. I don't know what that would be, but the audience is more controlling what you want to do than you.
This is my argument for laughing at the girlfriend when she's having a go at you. If I start laughing when you're having a go at me, I'm choosing to reframe this whole thing as I'm the winner.
Okay, well, if that works for that person, that's great.
It didn't work. We obviously broke up not long after, but yeah, like that whole, some relationships, it is constantly resisting the trap of falling into her frame.
I definitely seen that. I've seen like people who just always want to argue all of the time, and it's like at some point, I told my friends, it's almost like my friends have been in like these verbally abusive relationships. Like you just have to disengage or leave.
Never sink to her level.
By the way, this whole like this screen, it's like a giant white square with one little tweet saying arguing with her is falling into her frame. I kind of like this like image.
It's so zen. It's like an epiphany.
Yeah.
How does that apply to storytelling if she is the reader? What is this? How does this link up?
Or even let's do sales. Yeah, like for sales, you can imagine if you're arguing with the person you're trying to sell to, obviously that would not work. And then the equivalent of arguing with the audience would be, it'd kind of be like how you're kind of reacting to audience feedback. Because that's it's like, you don't even, one school of thought is you don't even want to react to audience feedback at all, and you want to be doing your thing, and they're the ones reacting. That's the frame control, but maybe that could be too extreme too. So
definitely don't make your product become an argument with people who weren't even going to buy it, which is what's happening so much now, right? Like people receiving a lot of criticism and then changing their product for people who weren't even going to buy it anyway.
Yeah.
For storytelling, the only aspect I could equate this to would be contradicting your own story. And
oh yeah,
so it would make your reader feel like you don't know what you're doing, and if you're contradicting yourself in your own story, then it's just gonna lead to a mess. It's more of a technical thing.
Yeah.
That would be more like you're arguing with yourself. You don't want your world to argue with itself.
I've thought of that where I used to do this, and I think I quit doing it because I realized it's like annoying and stupid or whatever. But you're almost doing this thing where you could even be talking to someone and you're like, right now you're probably thinking this, but to that I have to say this. Unless you're thinking this, then I say this. And like, if you did that to someone, they're like, dude, shut the fuck up.
You're predicting my thoughts that I'm not even thinking.
Yeah.
Like, is that like when someone's trying to start a video on YouTube, but then they have like all of the pre-arguments for all of their like dissenters like already queued up before they even make a point?
And maybe if they're right, sometimes you can get a kick out of that. But it is like it came up on an earlier screen. Like if you're wrong, you're just going to piss them off. So it's almost not worth it kind of thing.
This could also be like make rules for your world so you kind of have a frame that you and your reader are in.
Oh, and I like that a lot.
It also builds for a more fruitful foundation, because if you have limitations, then you have questions and you have emotion,
Yeah. By the way, Alex VRB says, you can win an argument with a woman. I've done it. It's possible, but you have to make her laugh in the process and then do things her way anyway. Still technically counts.
No, you tell the woman what they're actually, you have just figure out what they're actually mad about and tell them like point blank what they're actually mad about. And then they go, oh yeah. Because they'll never be saying what they actually mean. They're talking about something completely unrelated.
There's a lot of generalization that I'm not necessarily comfortable with, but I'm going to let it happen anyway.
But they're entertaining generalizations.
Oh yeah, I'm sure. I will not refute your lived experiences.
It's my truth.
It's your truth.
Yeah. Rini, how do you ever lose arguments?
Yeah. I do all the time. I don't know. It's
as long as they're against men. I'm
joking. No, I don't know. I try to be pretty objective about stuff, but I guess like the arguments that are really frustrating for me is like I'm kind of if my friends are more they're more, a lot of my friends are more moralistic than me, and I'm like more practical, but also I'll place like honor and respect and that kind of stuff. I'm probably like, that's like an Asian thing, but it's like we just don't get each other. But I'm learning like over 30 odd years of fucking up a lot, you just really have to explain yourself, because a lot of arguments come from people not even understanding where you're coming from. So you have to be self-aware and give people the benefit of the doubt.
They're usually arguing two completely different points as well.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that's the most infuriating arguments. Like this person is arguing about this person is arguing about someone else, and none of them are listening to each other.
Right. A lot of it is complete misunderstanding. Like you're assuming you did this thing, but you're doing it to bother me, but that wasn't their intention at all. But now you're saying something just to hurt their feelings instead of explaining yourself and taking a step back.
That could apply to storytelling in a cool way to create interactivity for the viewer by like having one but two different sides of a problem that are like enemies, misinterpreting the argument between the two, like I'm like the conflict. Do you know what I mean? Like I think this person is just trying to fuck me over and doesn't want to hang out with me, And then, but then that actual side of the story is, I don't want to hang out with anyone. I'm going through something. But then, like, do you know what I mean? It's just
the misunderstanding. Well, they do that. Like Romeo and Juliet does that. That's possibly
that. Yes,
dramatic.
Yeah.
exactly.
Oh my god, yeah. What a bunch of dummies.
No, that's so much fun to write characters who it's like I love writing this when it's when characters are in opposition to each other, but it's like they're not saying what they want because they have mental blocks towards just saying what they want or saying their true feelings. And even it doesn't even matter if they would agree, but it's just like they're not saying what they want, and depending on their personalities, they're presenting it in a certain way. And the story is about either they fix their personality problems or don't.
Yeah. The audience could be like, if you would just sit down and talk it out, everything would be fine, but they won't do it.
It always happens in Aladdin. I always think that whenever I listen to Aladdin. It's the whole tell her the truth. Stop lying.
Oh, yeah.
Michael, you just said arguments cease when you really don't give a fuck anymore. I think sometimes it's hard to not give a fuck about some situations, but it helps to take a step back and just give it time. Yeah.
I got in an argument once with a girl where I was being too mean to her dog, so she got mad at me, kind of rightfully so. And I was like, I'm sorry, I won't do it.
You were kicking it all the time.
No, I was like, I was teasing it with its own food or something, and it got kind of startled or something. It was a little.
You were creating interactivity in the dog's mind.
Yeah. But so she got mad, and then I was like, I'm sorry, I won't do it anymore. And she goes, now you're just playing the victim. And I was like, oh dang.
Okay, okay. Come on, yeah, that's a little much.
Yeah.
That's like
you can't win.
Yeah. It's like, well, stop throwing people's dogs off of bridges now. It's a little much.
You know what? A lot of the time, because a lot of people argue emotionally, they don't care whether it's right or wrong. They just want you to suffer if they perceived you as wrong.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the most difficult.
It's like, I don't care that you're right. I fucking hate you now.
Right. Or when the argument is about, you didn't say this in a way I like. And that's always hard. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, I don't think it's like, well, when offense is always like stupid, or you should never take offense. But I think it's, I don't know, there's limits to it, right?
Yeah. Bowtied Sales Guy. Do not answer a question unless you know the reason, intent, or trigger. Have lost many deals because of this one mistake. Also have caused headaches in personal life because I rushed to answer the question I thought they were asking. This is almost a little bit what we're talking about, kind of.
Yeah, that is what we're like. It's you're predicting what they'll think. But
why are they asking? Why are they asking? What do they want to happen by asking the question? The intent, you know what I mean? Like, why are they? And then what caused them to ask it? Like, what's the trigger event? Like, go on.
Oh no, sorry. I thought you were done. This made me think about like watching court trials and how really good witnesses, like how lawyers will ask questions that are really manipulative sometimes, and it's like they'll frame it in a way like it's like the this is, I can't think of something off the top of my head, but if you guys saw the Johnny Depp trial, the question with the hot psychologist, I don't remember, with the glasses, and like she was like, every question they threw at her was manipulative, but she instead of just answering, she would be like, wait, what do you mean by this specific word? What time are you referencing to? And then it like that would all have to be cleared up before she answers it. And I don't know, that's just an example I thought of.
Which is that's her trying to prospect for the answers to those three factors, right?
Or not be or just be clear in your communication and not be manipulated.
Well, this I would think equating to storytelling would just be all about pacing. Of reveal what you want to reveal or what you need to at the specific times. You don't want to reveal them too early.
And then if it's almost, I don't know if you track the audience too much, but you can get a sense of what the things they'd be curious about at any given point. And then it's a question of whether you want to tease it or answer it or whatever.
How often when you're writing a story do you put a breadcrumb thinking that the audience is going to cause a certain type of question, but then you get feedback and it's like they had a totally different interpretation, and then you kind of like readjust around that.
I wonder if that happened with Star Wars, potentially with Jedi Knights, because that was one where that is just so cool. And I just know every kid who sees that, as soon as you hear the word Jedi Knight, you're like, what the fuck is that? I gotta see more. I gotta know. And they didn't address too much of it really in the first movie, but then they start addressing more of it in the second and third.
I did have I had the only thing I can remember is in the beginning of Fiendish, I showed some people I used to work with in animation, and I got really weird feedback where they misunderstood everything about the beginning. It was like I don't know if everybody's read Fiendish or not, but the beginning was it was like a bloody flashback. It was supposed to be just something shocking to grab everyone's attention, and it's like they were like, but I don't understand what's happening. And I'm like, that's the point. I want you to keep reading. And like, so I was like, I think that's feedback that I could disregard. But you guys brought up a good point about, well, how much do you want to reveal? And that also ties into world building itself, because if you don't want to be too carried away by, well, the audience is curious about this one thing, so you get distracted talking about you change your plot, or you change your story to focus on this aspect of world building or this character that doesn't tie into the main through line. You want to make sure you stay focused and don't get too distracted.
Yeah, it would be this too. If it's like, this is talking about tying together answers with questions, and it's so like you wouldn't want to ask a question that has no answer, or vice versa, or whatever. Like, you want the stuff kind of to be paired up and kind of organized a little bit. That could be kind of a pacing thing too, maybe. But
yeah, and
well,
I think. Oh, sorry. Ahead. Okay, I was just gonna say, I don't know if anything I'm saying really like ties this into this question. I feel like it doesn't, but I guess in your storytelling, even disregarding any audience feedback, it's okay to leave mystery, and that relates to what's being said here. If there's no need to reveal something, it doesn't apply. What are the big things that it's like every chapter or every page, it should either be revealing character or plot or world building, and those three things. And if a scene or a question that you think an audience might have doesn't relate to those three things, then you don't need to answer it.
Yeah. Your boy Zach said in a video recently, he said like people accuse him of not explaining enough, so they're confused at the end of what actually happened or what's going to happen. And he was, in his defense, he was defending himself, and he says, well, tell me what you think happened. And he goes, 99% of the time their guess is what is correct. So he's like, so that means I did set up the pieces right for them to put it together. And
bring up Down Goes Solo's question again, because it relates. It's like a really good how often do you actually feel like answering their questions? Wouldn't you rather keep them guessing? The thing is, if you never give any answers, you're keeping too many plates spinning forever. The tension becomes too much and people zone out. If you over answer, it's like you're over explaining it, so there's no room for imagination. So it's like there's a middle, right?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Right. Too much of something is never good. So too much of not answering questions for a length of time.
And that's more J.J. Abrams-y for sure.
Right. That makes the questions mean nothing.
Yes. Yeah.
So that's with anything. I mean, too much, bloody action. You're over stimulated by it, and it's the normal now, right? So you want, like I said, the peaks and valleys of things, and you need to answer questions to further the plot.
You want to be just a bit of a tease, but not absent. Just a little bit to keep them interested.
Become a problem.
Become a problem, exactly. That's the takeaway from today.
Cool. Is this the last? Oh no, the second to last.
Yeah,
this is kind of random, but so this is Rivellino. If you want to repel high quality women, don't develop a mission and a sense of purpose. Don't develop a sense of style. Don't develop your talents and skills. Don't develop a sexy hobby. Don't believe in love. You could flip those and be like, if you want a good story, develop a mission and sense of purpose, develop a sense of style, develop your talents and skills, develop a sexy hobby. I'm not sure how that applies.
The whole way that is
absolutely believe in love.
The whole way that is worded is well, if you don't like action, this book might not be for you.
Yeah.
The way that whole thing is written is, well, if you don't want a cool
Yeah, you're right.
woman-
It's making you light bulb yourself, kind of. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the Chad sales pitch.
If you want to appear like less of a man, complain, make excuses, blame other people, wear skinny jeans, drink out of a straw.
Wear skinny, the wear skinny jeans one.
This is great. I want this screenshot. Can you post this in the chat? In the group chat.
Words to live by.
As a sales tactic, it's making the reader question themselves.
Yeah. I don't complain. I don't wear skinny jeans.
Yeah. And I don't know this last one exactly if it was story, like what's the equivalent of a story complaining? Just being needy and annoying. Don't be a needy and annoying story.
Do you know with the skinny jeans thing, there's kind of like a double meaning to it. Like all jeans are skinny if you're fat enough too. So lose some weight.
Get in shape.
Yeah, get in shape.
The needy and annoying thing is an unsurance. I don't think that's a word. A unconfident storyteller that doesn't know what they're trying to pitch, that doesn't know that is unsure of what their book is. Like if your book is everything, like we said before, then it's nothing. So that would be someone that is a storyteller that's needy and annoying. You need assurance and confidence in the stuff that you're.
Yeah, we were talking earlier, like even just the self-identity and self-awareness is like really, really meaningful and helps a lot.
I feel like
many a guy wearing skinny jeans might not have that. He has no self-identity.
Yeah, I've been thinking in regards to why American comics are doing so badly, and I think a lot of it is being out of touch with the customers, which is being out of touch with the person you're trying to sell to, or being out of touch with the person you're trying to like woo or something like that. But so what's the answer? It's basically, what are the most popular media? Movies, music. These things are, I think this all kind of ties together. Sales and dating or sex and what we're trying to do. Essentially, what we have to do is make comics sexy, make it appealing. And that's not just have boobs and ass out there. That's not the only way. It's make it appealing, it have style, make it confident, and believe that there is going to be a large audience. Don't be self-defeatist about it.
Yeah.
And present yourself, put yourself out there and say, this is a great product, and present yourself as, I am a good partner, I'm a good creator, you're going to be in good hands.
Yeah, there's a good kind of famous writer named Robert Greene, and he wrote a book called The Art of Seduction, and he's not even talking about sex. It's like seduction is like, it could be applied to that, but it's just like winning people over, you could call it, is kind of a thing.
It's like the erosion of like your interest in where the medium's gone. It's like they've been asking less and less interesting questions with even less fulfilling answers.
Oh yeah, doesn't that really summarize it all though? They've been asking dumb questions with illogical answers.
Yeah. That
what a spider! What a Miles Morales Thor!
Yeah, and it's like that's an uninteresting question. That makes no interactivity. Where's where's the interactivity there?
Yeah, it's not a hard question. If you go back to early like Spider-Man's origin, there immediately is some hard questions of like great power comes great responsibility and blah blah blah, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, those are deep moral questions, and that's, in a way, it's, I don't know, like not sexy in the way of what we usually think, but seductive, like intellectually seductive.
Yeah,
right. Well, you look at Spider-Man, like his main thing, was the death of Uncle Ben, and how do you deal with knowing that you could have prevented the death of a loved one, but because you were being selfish, you didn't. And now you have to live with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you do from that?
That's a heavy question.
Creating a compelling dynamo powerhouse for like all other decisions you'll see that character make too, because they'll always be like PTSD flashing back to that one
Right.
big mistake.
Yeah, and then knowing the answers to those questions, or just knowing those questions in general, help you understand the map of your character and what they're doing in different scenarios.
Yeah. Down Gold Soul, does anyone else prefer a story that meanders a bit? I don't want or need constant focus. I think some of that naturally happens if you have a longer story that's still well told. It's just going to feel like it meanders, but it's on point at the same time. Like, again, like Lord of the Rings or Star Wars, but Star Wars, like, in Empire, Luke goes to train with Yoda, and that's totally like a meandering break from the rest of the story that is still super on point. It's like,
but it's everything. So it's meandering. Like, what is meandering? Because that is potentially meandering, but like everything they're doing is still going to be important, because they're still going to be like you're demonstrating the competence of Yoda whilst he's visiting, right? Like, and
you're
still doing important things.
Growing Luke as a character while other people are off planet doing other stuff. You as a consumer may feel that's meandering, and you may like that but what is actually happening is those spots in the story are being used to build the world out and extrapolate character progression.
Yeah, they kind of still design that way. Like Phil was saying, peaks and valleys. Like, I kind of like that term too.
Yeah, it's not necessarily a waste of time if it's not addressing the plot directly. I think that's. I'm thinking about this in relation to slice of life. Why slice of life works really well in manga, but not with these, like these Marvel creators trying to rip it off. I think it's because they don't realize that it's not meandering. Slice of life, or even stories that like characters sitting in a cafe, it's not meandering. You have to reveal character and world building, and it's just loose on the plot but heavy on character, and that's interesting as well. But if a story is just meandering and the characters are static and there's no moral question, then that's not interesting.
Something always needs to be changing or growing. Like, if you as a writer set out to be meandering, like, what are you then thinking you're doing? Well, I'll have them in a room having a conversation that doesn't go anywhere, or they'll go for a walk in the woods and nothing will happen. Like, nothing will be revealed.
You can feel when nothing happens. Like, speaking of two people in a diner, like, you can imagine, say it's a guy and a girl, and they're still kind of getting to know each other, and they're both really nice and friendly. But in the scene, the guy is really rude to the waitress, and you see the girl, and you see her react to that and start to take in, like, oh, he's not exactly what I thought, Like, then there is a point to the scene. If something like that doesn't happen, if they just eat, say thank you, and leave, and nothing happened, that feels terrible, kind of. That doesn't feel good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Chris Gore from Film Threat hammers home the point: the best scenes in film are two people having a compelling conversation. Anna did a Flash. She hosted Flashcast a few weeks ago, and Chris Gore, I think Chris Gore was in the chat a little bit. So
he was
and our friends.
He was on a show with them recently. I think he might have
been. Like he'll hop on, I guess. Yeah, that's cool.
He's really good at breaking these things down in an understandable way.
I love listening to Chris Gore's interviews.
Yeah, he's cool because he was pretty with it the whole way through. He understood the woke bullshit's total crap. Kind of. All right, I think this is the last.
This is the real question.
Why isn't this being said more? This is perfect.
Rini, you take this one. You explain this one.
Me explain this one in relation to storytelling.
Whatever it means to you. Whatever this means to you.
What would cock and balls be in relation to story? Okay. This can't be. Well, it can be interpreted in many ways. And
sorry, Phil.
this could be interpreted. I mean, Phil, if you want to, if you have something to say, you can go ahead.
The cock and balls conundrum is on the edge of his tongue.
I was going to say that this, sentence or 2 lines here is a technique we were talking about, which is reframing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it did. It reframed the whole, size manners and like kind of thing. And I guess, well, this is reframing how usually when you're talking about manliness, it's all about cock size, but the reframing here is it's not about your showiness or I'm interpreting it as like, because cock and balls, these things have metaphors, right? And when you talk about like measuring dick sizes, that has to be like you're representing something superficial, and you're being blusterous and like being sort of outwardly presenting. So that's not the problem, and this can apply to dating or business or anything else in your life. It's the size of your balls, which is your content of character almost. That's what usually that references to, that it's your, not necessarily, well, how audacious are you? How confrontational are you? That's not really how I would interpret it. Is that it was more, do you have the balls to man up or even woman up? Because I think a lot of women need to women up and better yourself.
Women need more balls on women.
But like figuratively speaking, and so listen, a lot of women need to take more responsibility, and it would really help our society. But anyways, whether you have the courage to better yourself and put yourself out there and admit it when you're wrong, but stand your ground when you're right, and actually go out there and achieve your dreams. That's the actual problem, not like my nose is so ugly or like I don't have enough money. Maybe that's not even the problem. Maybe it's just your content of character.
Well, women always in dating, they always have on their fucking profiles like, what's the I just had it in my head. It's like cockiness versus confidence, right? Like, the being cocky, being obnoxious. There we go. Obnoxious is not being confident. Like, being cocky compared to like having balls and actually being confident. Like cocky, it's all for show.
By the way, isn't there a drawing of Rini with a giant ball sack all around her?
Yeah, that Jake did. Thanks, Jake. So this can absolutely circle right back around to what we were talking about right at the beginning. It's not, the problem isn't, like a lot of people think, well, the way they're presenting their story and they're pitching their product is they're trying to chase, or the way they do it is they chase what's popular now and they're not confident about it, and they might not even know what their story is about. They just they're not introspectively thinking about what is the message I want to send out into the world. They're just like, well, I enjoy superhero stories, or I enjoy mystery stories, so I'm going to draw a standard story but tell people it's the most mind-blowing thing that is so original, but there's no substance to it. Then that's thank you, Jake. I don't know if this makes sense, but it's sort of like the problem isn't you're not being blusterous enough. The problem isn't you're not being loud enough. Like you can go out there and yell about, this is the most amazing story and it'll change your life and I'm better than Tolkien. But if you don't have substance, then it's not going to sell. It's the size of your balls. You need to have the balls to introspect, understand, get better as a storyteller, and actually
it would be like
be better.
Yeah, it's like misidentifying what the audience wants. You kind of want to avoid that. And then in this case, the metaphor being what they want, it's like balls. But what I was thinking is this was for a while now. I've thought like, dang, if you could like one word, what happened to the comic industry is it lost its balls. And that's one way to save it, is to give it its balls back. And a lot of that is like the individuality of the stories and people bringing back just, they want to like present their vision. Rather than like if it's the towing the line of the woke stuff, if it's self-censoring, like getting away from that, getting more towards like your own heart kind of, and actually like
hive mind stuff,
because that takes courage. It takes a lot of courage to really put your heart into your work, and then you can get burned a little bit. People make
and then be out there and have the chance of being ridiculed for yourself that's on a page, you know?
Yeah.
Because when you're writing stuff, you're putting yourself into this story, and no one wants to be ridiculed for being themselves. But this reminds me of a saying that my mom always used to tell me is it's not what you say, but it's how you say it. So even, with storytelling things, you could have a good story there, but if you are not presenting it in the right way, if you don't have the courage to do this stuff, or you're doing it limp-wristedly or on the safe side of things and not going full force into it, it could go to waste.
Yeah, take risks. Dare to draw Rini as a cock and balls.
That's a perfect analogy. So inspiring. Yeah, I like that idea of it. I'm trying to figure out how to boil this down and simplify it. It's not your bluster, and it's not that your story isn't not selling because you're not being blusterous enough, or you're not chasing the algorithm, you're not catching the right trend. That's not the actual problem. The problem is you don't have the balls to actually introspect and look into yourself and put yourself out raw into your product and connect with the audience.
Yeah, I agree. That's well said. Christopher Dominguez, true writers and creators put themselves on the line with heart, courage, and soul. Yeah, and this is the last one, so we'll dwell on this for a little bit, and then we might get out of here pretty soon. But
hey, this has been a great show. We think we've talked all of this almost to death. And
I was surprised. We made so many connections. It's almost like we were talking about things that could be really generalized, but also could be very specific.
Yeah, I really appreciate what you guys brought to it, having 3 extra people besides me, all adding their thoughts in unison, got to the bottom of it.
4 people is supposed to be the magic number for a discussion on the stream. 4 is supposed to be the sweet spot for breaking something down. And
I really liked this episode because we had to figure stuff out, and make our own light bulbs from all this stuff you were presenting with us.
Yes!
Or we had to logicalize ourselves into making sense of it all. I'm just kidding. Sure. No, there are a lot of similarities between sales and storytelling. I thought this was really fun.
Noel prepared a stream that produced maximum interactivity in our 3 minds. How about that?
Yeah, the only thing I did was picked to end with this one was an okay decision by the curator.
No, this is the perfect one to end on. I think this is really well put together.
Yeah. And when Rini saw this, she laughed out loud. That's a light bulb. Anytime someone laughs, that's a light bulb.
Yeah.
And that's Rivellino. He's pretty funny sometimes. So.
Yeah.
Thank you to the 2 people on Twitter for providing most of the content for the stream, I guess.
I don't even know who these are. I guess Rivellino is a dating person, and obviously the other guy was a sales guy.
Yeah, bow-tied sales guy and Rivellino are the 2 tweets that we mined.
Bow-tie the sales guy.
Cool. Well, 50 people watching. Chat, thanks for being here too. On this episode too, there's great chat participation, and I think the chat had a lot of fun.
Should we run through campaigns before we go?
Yeah. Do you want to screen share, or should I?
Can you do it? Yeah, I love that whole pass in the book.
I'm actually not that prepared.
Gosh, you let us all down.
Well, if you want to look at my stuff, I don't need to bring anything up. You can either go to fist.zone to check out my game, or just go on my YouTube channel at Hyperwizard, and it's on my channel next week. So if you want to watch the next one, get subscribed and ready. I've got to try and top this episode, which is going to be fucking hard.
Good luck.
Hey, Jake's next. You are next in line, Jake. Down Goes Soul is asking. And for what it's about, we don't necessarily know yet.
We'll
I don't
find
even
out.
know yet. I don't even know yet.
Every time Rini laughs, a milkshake girl cries.
Yeah, I'm
True.
a half boy.
I think I'm gonna rephrase. I got a backer like right at the start of the show, so thank you whoever backed.
It's the novel nudge. Actually, I'll ask the audience about this. What do you guys think? What does the audience think about us coming up and creating something during a show rather than deconstructing a topic? Like, because that could be something.
I don't know. Just leave
We
it in the
can-
comments below.
Yeah, we can do that next time. You can have I don't know, put out a thought experiment and have us come up with a story or something.
Yeah.
Be creative.
Keep them on their toes.
I did some new art in this update. We are on our way. We're trying to get to 40K, guys. We're trying. But we just closed out our 60 days, which is the biggest closeout we've done after 60 days. So thank you guys for backing. If you guys haven't backed, if you haven't seen the book, then now's the time to back. If you love comics, you're going to love this one. It's the third in the series. This is our 6th crowdfunded book that we are going to be delivering on time. 2 options for covers. It's about Jasmine and her imaginary friend Krim. They're crime fighters. Jazz gets kidnapped and sedated, and when she's drugged, she doesn't have super strength anymore, and she doesn't see her imaginary friend. He gets thrown back into her head and has to fight all of her inner demons to claw his way out of her head and save her in the city. So check it out, everybody. And then I just got some little new art from the book as well, with some new colors. So lots of crazy action. If you guys like action comics with superheroes, you guys are going to dig this stuff. It's very character led and character driven story. That's what we love doing. And if you haven't read any of the previous stuff, check out the tome pack, which is the manga sized book, 200 pages, 212 pages collected, all one-stop shop for the previous stories. And yeah,
Nice.
Thank you, chat.
Yeah, looks great. It's doing great. 33,500 or so, something like that.
Have you got any more original art cards going up soon? Have you done them all?
No. So we just put some up this week. We did Simon Sim Pothiers. And then I just got a couple more that we're going to put up Monday.
Phil,
cool. So this Monday.
Phil, how do I get one of those biz covers?
Oh, great question. Yeah, so we do have 2 covers for this third one. And all you have to do is just whatever you're going to back, like if you back the monster pack or just a book or the tome, you just click on it. It says get this perk, and this will pop up. And you have to choose one of the covers, either the Bisley cover or the Dan Dahl cover.
And is he? I was wondering if he's asking that he wants the original art, maybe too, though. I'm not sure.
Oh, that would be crazy. I don't know if I had the original art for the first one for sale, but no one bought it. Maybe I'll put it up. He's sending it to me. But if you haven't gotten the first book as well, Simon did the cover for the first book. So there are still copies of this left as first printings, either on our website or you could add it on to your Lost Pages 3 backing as well as the add-on section. So yeah, thanks.
Sweet. And yeah, if you mean the full cover, Down Goes Soul, you guys can chat it out in a DM, I think, maybe something like that.
Yeah.
Rini with Fiendish.
That's me! Oh my gosh, I was looking at something else. Hello, everybody. That's my comic, Fiendish, and this is the website, fiendishcomic.com, which I would like everybody to check out. If you haven't yet, I have a website for Fiendish. It's really awesome. I have all kinds of cool stuff. Like, look, I have characters. I have a world map. I have all this stuff that spoils way too much of my world building that I probably shouldn't be spoiling yet, but I can't help myself. So go take a look. It's a really pretty and cool website. I'm proud of it. And also I have a free preview actually, if you just click through right here, if you have any doubts about this comic. Here's the Indiegogo. You can also find it through the website, but Fiendish Chapter 2 Origins. This is book 2 in the series. The story is about Casimir, guy with the sword right there, who is searching for the truth behind the demons that destroyed his hometown so long ago. If you like high fantasy, obviously a lot of world building, stuff like Tolkien and stuff like Berserk, then this is for you. We're doing really well, obviously, almost at 170,000. Thank you all a lot. The next stretch goal is at 170, and that'll be upping the fan art contest winners. And I have a bunch of more stretch goals planned out. We're in the final stretch for this campaign, by the way. I'm looking to fulfill in June, so I'm going to take it down before we go to print so we can actually have the numbers. So it'll only be up for maybe like it's the end of April, so it's only going to be up for a month. So back in now, because it won't be up for much longer.
Well, I have to do an explosive closeout when the time comes to. I'm sure
and explodes out.
Yeah.
Explodes
Try
out.
and get to 200 now. Isn't there a super big cool stretch goal at that point? Maybe, I'm not sure.
Yeah. I don't know how often I should mention that now, but yes, I haven't put it on here yet. Also, speaking of sexy, if you would like that, you can get that in the Give Me Everything tier, by the way. That was a limited cover, but you can get that in the
That's what I tell the masseuse every time.
Yes. Give me everything. It's like people were saying my tier names were kind of sexual. I didn't even realize it. It was like give me everything. Well, boobs go. That was on purpose. But bulk, wood. I don't know. People have dirty minds. So, anyways, here are the stretch goals. At 200K, though, I'm going to be adding 6 or so story pages to the book. This is already right now it's 66 story pages. So I do have to update the campaign. I condensed some of the pages for the story, but I added more content in the back, so more extra content. And if we hit 200K, you guys will get a sneak peek at chapter 2.5, which is a side story that I've been working on with the awesome artist on the side, and I'm going to be running that as a campaign in between chapter 2 and chapter 3. And it's really awesome. The whole story is like 25 pages, but I'll print the beginning with chapter 2, and you guys will get an early look if we hit 200.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Down Goes Solo says at 205,000, it's spot glass on the cover.
I don't think I'm gonna hit that. That's like, how am I gonna hit that?
No, he's joking. It's spot glass. You'd never do that. Not even for 205,000.
Yeah, close it at 204.
Yeah, I would be like, okay, we're done. I don't want to. Spot glass is such a pain in the ass. I don't. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Oh, and yeah, I'm in okay, so this is weird. I thought I had 8 pages left, but I looked today and I have 6. I'm really confused at myself. But I'm in the last stretch.
Drew 2 pages.
I don't know. It's I have to figure out what happened. When did I finish these pages? But anyways, we're in the last stretch. So the inks are almost done, and my colorist is the deadlines. NMA for going to print, so we better hit that. But yeah, we will, and we're going to be fulfilling really soon. So thank you guys.
Awesome,
cool.
Hell yeah.
Are you thinking of adding more wood burning at the end for the closeout? Just asking, because Down Goes Solo's in the chat, and he outbids everyone in the freaking auctions for your stuff, and he said he didn't manage to get one.
Oh my gosh, I don't know. I still haven't done them. I already have 20. Ugh. I might not. You might have to wait. Yeah, I mean, after
once you get them done,
the next one,
the next one, yeah.
In my book, Cerberus, it closed out a few days ago, and we had a nice heartwarming story because it was at 28,000 the morning I woke up, and I realized I didn't even know this, but I was like, I checked Indiegogo. They actually won't let you go in demand unless it reaches the goal. And I had set a pretty high goal because I set it's transparent with the business plan where that's the break even point is 30,000 for hiring and colorists and everything. And so I kind of let everyone know. I was like, oh, it actually has to hit 30,000 to even go in demand. So I was thinking in my head, I'm like, ooh, I might be leaving some money on the table. Money's already kind of tight. I'm kind of stressing out. But it got retweeted 200, 300 times even for the whole day, multiple tweets retweeted. And the whole community rallied, and it went up 3,000 in one day, finished around 31,000, totally smashed the goal, went in demand. So now people can pick it up if they miss it. So it's still available. It'll be in demand for another couple of weeks. And yeah, this is the talking animal, talking dog detective story. The can you call it the pantheon of animal stories? There's actually not that many. There's like 5 to 10 that I know of, and they're all really good. They're all classics: 101 Dalmatians, Watership Down, and a few more. But this is going to kind of sit alongside those, so I'm trying to make it as good as I can. I hope people
it really does feel like it sits alongside. Having read it twice, like it really does feel the quality of those. Like it's not just like, oh, he's pitching it as that, and like I guess he kind of does it. Like it genuinely does feel like it can sit among those. The art is perfectly professional the entire time. The writing is engaging. The characterizations of the animals is interesting and fun, and they're not all the same voice. They all have their own different voices. There's plenty of awesome setups and payoffs, and the ending really does make you want to read the next one. So
this one, I wonder, I was thinking, compared to Earthbound is kind of a lot of like my personality, and it's kind of quirky and kind of weird. And this one, I disappear into it a little bit in hopefully a good way. Like I'm just kind of trying to be a craftsman writer and have it not necessarily be super quirky or weird. You know, it's kind of an intense, serious murder mystery with talking animals.
Yeah.
There's a hardcover for Cave Slave on here that I never hear you mention too. I forgot about it. Like I was like, wait a minute, hardcover. Yeah.
It's a hardcover.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I added this halfway through the campaign.
Oh damn it.
Yeah.
Why? What's that the other? Okay.
You did that art
with
What'd
his
you say?
cover.
Yeah, that's the one I drew that one.
Cool.
And so that'll be hardcover. So people who pick that up, pick up obviously the soft cover of Cave Slave, written by Von Klaus. Amazing writer. It was fun working with him. He and I are planning a Cave Slave full book too at some point. So.
Oh yeah. Cave Slave is very popular for probably obvious reasons.
We're giving the people what they want.
Because she's a cave and a slave.
Yeah, that's what they wanted. Who knew? They wanted slavery, and they wanted it to be reappropriated by blonde white women.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Taking it back.
Yeah. Busty white women.
Cool. So with that, 43 people watching. Thank you so much. 2 hours and 45 minutes. I'm gonna do. Oh, I updated my shit, so I can just push the button. Are you guys ready? This is gonna be crazy.
Yeah.